Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our Tafsir. This is our weekly Tafsir session, our 234th session. The date is the 5th of April 2026. The format will be Tafsir, followed by question and answers, and then afterwards we'll stop the stream and start a Palestine update. And the Palestine update will eventually be uploaded to Rumble. We've had to choose this format because of problems we've had with YouTube, and they're censoring on anything Palestine related. Ironically, that's the same as what you find with the Muslim lands. Right now, you see how they are rushing to the defense of the regimes and doing a smear campaign and resurrecting one of their favorite tactics of sectarianism to try and exonerate their own support for crusade.
Yeah.
For their own support for crusaders, American bases on their own on Muslim lands. If you imagine, in the space of 30 odd years, the landscape of treachery has changed so much that we are inundated with US bases. So the land which used to talk about having al-wala wal-bara and the correct understanding is the first to have introduced US bases onto Islamic lands, and now it's a given, and there's conspicuous silence from these government prostitutes. So our Tafsir always talks about relevant issues, and our Q&A goes into details, and our Palestine updates are always, inshallah, informative. So well worth sticking around for that, joining the Zoom. Also, to get updates, join our Telegram channel. The link is in the description. So, and also from, as you may already be aware, that our previous channel was taken down. We are uploading significant material. So we've prioritized videos like, for example, allying with kuffar, ruling by Islam, rulership, tackling the common madkhali rubbish. Our Tawheed halakas are also all scheduled for daily release, so you'll have everything with you in a matter of time, inshallah. So do like, do share, subscribe, and everything, so you don't miss out, inshallah. Okay, so Tafsir session 234. We are on. Bear with me a second. The problem of having too many screens open at once. We are on ayah 73 from surah. Let's just a second.
Is it the Shu'ara?
Just a second. We are in Surah Naml, ayah 73. Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Just let me find the ayah. وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَا يَعْلَمُ مَا تُكِنُّ صُدُورُهُمْ وَمَا يُعْلِنُونَ. Do you want me to recite a few ayahs and then do the translation? Or
No, just you can do the translation. It seems to be just stating a certain fact. So
okay.
It connects easy with the before and after, yeah.
Okay, so one translation is, now verily thy sustainer is indeed limitless in his bounty unto men, but most of them are bereft of gratitude. The other translation, which is Safi Kafkas, verily your Lord is bountiful to people, but most of them do not show gratitude. Next ayah.
Are you sure that you're translating the ayah? Because the ayah says your Lord is aware about what they have in their chests. That's the hide and what they publicly express. Doesn't seem as if I hear correctly.
Oh, sorry. You know what? Let me think.
Seems to be talking about something.
Sorry, sorry, I skipped ayah. Okay.
Careful, yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Let me just check. So 73.
Translating something different.
Give me a second, because I may well have, when you save something and it's entirely possible I saved the. Okay, you know what? Let's just.
is asserting to the Prophet that your Lord knows what they have in their chest and what they say publicly. So it's very well aware about this. What they say publicly is clear, but what they have there in their chest, really, because what the people say publicly is the same what they have in their chests.
Okay, sorry, I was in a completely wrong, completely wrong area. So okay. وإن ربك لا يعلم ما تكن صدورهم
تكن صدورهم ما يعلنون.
Okay, let me. The one before that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. وإن ربك لذو فضل على الناس ولكن أكثرهم لا يشكرون.
That's the one before we did not have last time.
I don't think so.
Okay, we can translate. It's a fundamental fact also.
Yeah.
We just
now verily, thy sustainer is indeed limitless in his bounty unto men, but most of them are bereft of gratitude. And then other translation, which mentioned earlier, is verily your Lord is bountiful to people, but most of them do not show gratitude.
Yeah, that's a fundamental fact. That's just reminding visitors again and again, because many people, maybe it's a good time to comment small on some people who talk about they have problem with the evidences of existence of God because what they call a problem of suffering, etc. I'm not going to go the details of qadar and suffering. We went many times and so on. That the Quran talks to the people as if they have like an independent existence, and they have independent origin and so on. In reality, their existence, anything except the exalted and majestic, the eternal, the necessary existing, everything else is nothing. Start with nothing. So your own existence or the existence of the universe is a gift from him to start with. That's number one. Secondly, all other attributes who gain along there, especially the fact that certain beings like ourselves who are addressed, there may be other beings similar to us. I'm not going to indulge in that. The one who have sufficient rationality, so we can talk about rational beings. Or in principle, I mean, obviously, some of us are mental, some of us are handicapped, disabled mentally, so they are not responsible and we're not worthy of address. That's because the system of the universe allowed that to happen, and it was going to happen because of the nature of the universe. But we're talking about the basic principle that any single human is basically so structured that he is capable of what we call the rational discourse. That's the zero level. Secondly, he's so equipped that he has a genuinely free will, and both can be expressed that he's being made in the image of Allah or in the image of the merciful Lord, as some hadith say, and also the Old Testament. God made Adam in his image. That's the meaning of it. Not only the shape, but the bodily shape. That's obviously absurd, but the intellectual, the ideal image, which is the two essentials of the divine characteristic: knowledge, rationality, knowledge, all these issues connected with it. And the other one is absolute spontaneity and freedom. In the case of the divine, it is unlimited. The only limitation is his own being, and his own being the absolute truth and absolute real and necessarily existing. That's by necessity of his own being the full truth, because one of his name, the divine name of Allah Subhanahu is the truth with the capital T. So Allah Subhanahu is the truth, al-haq, al-mubin, and the evident truth. The creation cannot be like that. It's impossible. Otherwise, it's divine, but creating a divine is impossible. So we have to check that out. So that's what you already, the starting point have is all none of yours. It's gift by Allah. Still, he addresses you if you are independent, created by someone else. So this is a great favor from Allah to address you in the first place. So the issue of suffering as well, if you don't look at it from this angle, you will be just going around in a never-ending circle. And that's where the devil takes you. How come that we have these tsunamis? How come this? I understand that is widespread in the West because they come from an idea of a divine based on Nicene Creed or Nicene what's the name of the city there, Constantinople and Creed, and about Isa that he's part of the divine and he came and suffered for our sake. So if that you start about the divine that he's ready to suffer and die for your sake, then the question, how come that he allows tsunami and so on? So you have a wrong idea about God to start with, but this is what you have brought up. The whole culture and civilization is built on that. So you think that's part of the meaning of God. or the necessary existing being. It is not part. It's the wrong part. That's not the way it starts. You start with really genuinely attributes and characteristics of a necessary existing being who is a creator. That he dies for you or not dies for you, there's an issue which should be settled much later, not at the beginning. So if you assume that, you will never find the way. You'll be going in circle like a donkey and never ending anything. And then you say, what we see, negate that it is that kind one who is willing to die for you, so he doesn't exist. Because you started with an entity which itself is imaginary and internal contradiction. That's not God. That's something else. Your imagination about God, as expressed in the Nicene Creed. Maybe that's an excuse for the West. They have a bad starting point. Other cultures, they don't have. They have that a bit, but rarely. If you see, for example, people arguing about waiting people, like I feel always pain hearing about Ehrman, who analyzes the scripture, especially the New Testament scripture, and shows how people have fabricated and put things to the mouth of Isa, etc. Excellent mind. And then one day, casually, because he has a series of videos, a woman is interviewing him, and then he said that it's very clear, that's well established from just studying the scripture as they in our hand, that there's plenty of fabrication and misquoting Jesus. He has a famous book called Misquoting Jesus. And then the woman asked him, is that the reason to become a theist? No, that's not the reason. The reason is the problem of suffering. And he didn't comment any further. I felt really pain that a man with such a mind and thoroughness is falling in such a unbelievable trap. But he grew from this. He was originally a fundamentalist and so on, and then became critical by internal study and external. But he was never on the table in his environment in the United States of America, never in the table to look outside the other ideas about God and others about revelation, like looking at Islam. Nowhere it seems to be that he even flipped a book about Islam or about Quran and things like that. That's a pity. So back to that. This ayah states that fact in such a way that you think you have somehow independent existence and you can interact with Allah somehow in an equal level. It's not, but he talks to you in that way because he's forthcoming to you. That's again a gift. Allah is the one who is starting with absolutely the favor, where you were not absolute nothing. Now you are something. That's one with a fundamental favor. Second, you are rational, so you can be addressed. And rational meaning he gave you this capacity, and this is expressed in the Quran. علم آدم الأسماء كلها. This solved the problem of Noam Chomsky. When you say the language, we can assert the language started suddenly 250,000 years ago, essentially with the so-called genealogical Adam or genetic Adam. And they say we don't know how that happened. It is like a sudden effect, like a break in history. We don't know how it happened. I tell you, that's how it happened. علم آدم الأسماء كلها. How it is in the physical world expressed? You can speculate. Let me give a small speculation just to sweeten the day, since we have a long break. Humans, maybe Neanderthal, because I don't know if we have the account of the Neanderthal chromosomes. But humans have 46 chromosomes, 23 plus 23 pairs. All other higher apes, which are similar to us in every other structure except the capability of speak, have 48. And upon consideration of looking at the chromosomes and shape, they're almost identical, except that we have what they have in the higher apes, chimpanzee, etc., all of these guys, they have 48, 24 plus 24. And number 2 and 3 have, if you join them together in a certain way, they produce our number 2. So that's why 2 have disappeared by this. Now, joining 2 chromosomes in a certain way, the way it is joined, I would say, is extremely difficult to envisage a mutation. Very difficult. I don't know how genetic people can think about that. I think they never thought about that. Maybe they avoided, they're closing their eyes from the problem. But it seems to be that's where we get to the genetic Adam. Maybe Neanderthal descent from Adam, maybe not, because I don't think there's a count, because to have the chromosomes, they have to observe living cell while division and so on. Count the other genes, they can be asserted by testing the genetic material in the teeth and so on. So you can do with dead creatures up maybe 100, 200,000 years, you can still find some genetic material and compare genes. But chromosomes form really and become structured when you see them under the microscope and so on, while in a living cell. We don't have any living sample or something which is similarly. But I stand corrected. People who know biology may check around if we have nearly the count, if we have any certainty about the count of chromosomes or in the Neanderthals. That's the only one is there, but it's a secondary point. So the Neanderthals from Adam or some another, maybe they're also 48. So they are higher apes, but not. So, but it seems to be from the interaction that they seem to be similar to human. Anyway, that's a secondary. Such a mutation is very difficult to envisage, and it has to happen to at least a small community with female and male, because if it happens only to one male, there's no way there will be a matching female, and it will be sterile. So it has to happen. So it happened to two, at least one male and one female in a small community in a certain place, essentially almost probability zero. That will be some kind of biological evidence of the existence of an external force which stepped in history and changed something. But that is a small point. It's a sweetener. We don't need that even if it happened by the structure of the universe is going to result that we know that the initial parameter of the universe could have been changed in such a way that this could not happen. So we don't need that as evidence for existence of a divine being. We have so many other evidences, but it'll be like an icing on the cake. So that's it. So this ayah bring that all hidden in it. You have to flesh it out, and every generation can flesh it more by knowing more about what is this fadl. Fadl is your very existence is fadl from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, next ayah. I went a little bit off tangent in that, expanding a little bit too much, but that's the way you should look at things. A simple Bedouin in that time goes, yeah, Allah has given my favor, I have my eyes, I am healthy, and so on. That's the favor he comes in his mind. He will not think about his own existence and so on. He's not that favor. But when generation go, people become sophisticated, some of them become philosophical, they can go to this step. It's covered also by this ayah. Next ayah.
وإن ربك لا يعلم ما تكن صدورهم وما يعلنون.
Yeah.
But verily, thy sustainer knows all that their hearts conceal, as well as all that they bring into the open. The other translation from Kafkas is, certainly your Lord knows what their hearts conceal and what they declare.
Yeah, and that's a fact also we don't need to indulge. It's very obvious if you think about what the meaning of the divine being creating things completely out of nothing, then it's necessarily he would be aware about all what's going on there, and only he would be aware of all these things. Other creation may be having a capability of communication and knowing that, but as much as capability given them to by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is by definition of being the initial creator. In any case, again, as usual with these two translations, the first one, Muhammad Asad rahmatullah alayhi, was hijacked partly by the Wahhabi way of thinking and translated Rabb with sustainer. And we said that that's the wrong translation. That's not what the Arabic language means. It's to Lord. And they mentioned once these translation, these more literal translation, بظهور الحق, which did not even translate the word Rabb. It kept Rabb. And then in the expanded part, he explained and seems to be here adopting more towards Lord, which is the more correct way of doing things. But we kept Muhammad Asad because he has other aspects which he's quite good on, especially issues of qadar and free will and so on. His translation is really covering that in a more sophisticated way. So we're keeping him despite this error or this negative side. And the other one is quite good. And also I think he's also in issues of qadar is reasonable. So these two are not a bad choice. We continue with them, these two translations. Okay, but at least you have to look at 2 or 3 translations if you come to the Quran, because it doesn't seem to be one translator who has really got all aspects correctly, which is really impossible for a human being to do anyway. Okay, next ayah.
Sorry, 1 second. I think I might have made a change.
Are you looking for real things?
Hafiz, can you? Sorry. Okay.
Just maybe mute that or something.
Yeah. I think you started.
I think I have heard something like Hafiz. Is that Hafiz?
Yeah, that was Hafiz. Yeah, that was Hafiz.
I know his voice.
Sorry.
No problem. I recognize your voice by 1 syllable.
That's strange. I made the settings to default. Okay, because this GUI is changing next week, inshallah, I'll be more stringent. And
no problem. But Salam Hafiz, Eid Mubarak.
Wa alaikum salam. Sorry, brother. Sorry.
Okay.
Bad manners there.
Just mute. No problem. Mute from your side. Yes. Okay. Until we find the way with it, because the new interface does not show how to have But to start with mute right away. That's it. We'll get it, inshallah. No problem. That's the update of Zoom. Improving, well, this improving by improving.
Trial and error.
Next time, inshallah.
وما من غائبة في السماء والأرض إلا في كتاب مبين. For there is nothing so deeply hidden in the heavens or on earth, but it is recorded in his clear decree. The translation. For there is nothing so deeply hidden in the heavens or on earth, but it is recorded in his clear decree.
Okay. No, it's not a decree, it's wrong. Again, Kitab here means record. So the second one got it wrong. He does not understand. The ayah would says that anything which is absent from you direct perception, human perception, but it's in heaven and earth now, not the future, but and the past is gone. Now, at the moment, nothing which is what accessible to your senses is obvious. We don't need to address that. But anything which is absent and so deeply hidden in heaven and earth at this very moment, thus Allah is talking in this way, in the absolute time, in the reference frame of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the absolute frame, not the local frame. In local frame, comparing the frames because of measurements and the need of using signals, we may have these so-called relativistic effects. But look at the absolute time. In that very moment, your current moment, with that synchronized with the divine moment, everything not accessible directly to your senses or indirectly by your calculation, which you regard as hidden, ghaib, absent, that's ghaib again, ghaib, the absentism, is in the divine knowledge. And that is the divine knowledge is expressed metaphorically as Kitab Mubin. It's not a sheet of paper or a 70 years long tablet out of emerald, like some dreamer claimed that Ibn Abbas said. Most likely, if it's Ibn Abbas said that, he's meaning it metaphorically, to make it close to the people's mind at that time. It's written there, meaning it's available, it's accessible to the divine knowledge. Nothing. The other ayah in the other place showed that everything in heaven and earth, even this atom inside a rock, anywhere in heaven and earth, is known to Allah. Even if a leaf, and he uses now the change, even if a leaf falls, he knows that it has fallen before falling, after falling, which refuse the nonsense that many mutakallimin fell in about what they call events in the divine being. All this nonsense is refuted by the Quran clearly. Unfortunately, they did not benefit from that the right way it should be. Maybe they have an excuse. The level of mathematics and philosophy at their time was not up to that level. But anyway, so the Kitab Mubin, what is in record, is known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to show you the firm, absolutely certain knowledge is usually in our human perception is that what is written in front of you. We know that there's the maximum level of knowledge we can rely upon if it's recorded, if it is somehow, Now with the computers, we know that there's also the certainty of writing can be in a magnetic form. It doesn't need to be out. So there are many ways that it is we could call Kitab. The one of the divine is absolutely beyond our perception. We cannot have an idea how it looks like. It's impossible anyway. But to express it for everyone so you can understand, as if it is written in front of you of a book. Or if you talk about modern language, as if it is in a hard disk, or it is in the cloud. Whatever you hear, it's recorded in a way which is certain and readable, and possibly protected by multiple encryption, etc. Yeah, you understand what I mean. So the Kitab Mubin is not decree, no. It is Kitab here mean record. Knowledge. It's in the divine knowledge. All this is absent for you is in the divine knowledge. But this will be a dry language in the divine knowledge. في علم الله. But if you say, if Kitab Mubin, it's written so how you can read it. It makes you relate in your mind what's going on. Next ayah.
Next ayah. إن هذا القرآن يقص على بني إسرائيل أكثر الذي هم فيه يختلفون.
Okay, that's now another issue starting. Translate.
Behold, this Quran explains to the children of Israel most of that whereon they hold divergent views. In translation, behold, this Quran explains to the children of Israel most of that whereon they held divergent views. Pretty much identical. Oh, yeah, that's the same one actually. Okay.
And that's clear. More details of that, we discussed that in many options. let me
Sorry,
get-
let me get the alternate. So this Quran narrates to the children of Israel most of what they are in dispute over. That's the alternate.
narrates or يقص is very similar. The word used يقص meaning reports or tell the story or something or give the narrative and so on to one Israel. That's what they dispute about, even what they have in their own books. Like for example, if first of all, remember the story in the beginning going to started to I think we started about we must be 4 years back. If we are halakha number 240, that should be divided by 50. Yeah, 4 years almost. We are over 4 years now. We started. We came quickly to Surah Al-Baqarah, you remember, and the story of the cow. Now go to the Old Testament, at least what they call the Torah, what they call with the summary name Torah. That's the first 5 books, which is not really the real Torah, but let's assume that that's the name they give to it. You search for the story of the cow. There's nowhere the cow, but there is issues about the red heifer, which is without blemish. That's the one they're grooming now, and they're claiming they will have to slaughter it to purify the land, and then they establish the temple. Yeah, a strange story about how the priests have to purify themselves with the burnt offering of a heifer, etc., etc. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the story of the cow. There's no story of the cow in the Old Testament, nowhere. That story, especially with the stressing of the صفراء فاقع لونه يسر الناظرين, yellow or the reddish yellow, which is without لا شية فيها, without any blemish, is referring to this cow. But there it is referred to some kind of ritual of the priests. I think it's in the book of the Lawiyin, Leviticus. So the original story, if the Quran is the revelation, let's assume it's a revelation. Let's take a neutral position. This is a strange story. It's not there. That could be also the evidence that Muhammad is revealed. Where did Muhammad get this story? We check also the all the imaginary stories which are available in Aramaic and so on before Islam. I don't think they would find the cow story there. It's nowhere. But check. Maybe I'm lying. Maybe I'm mistaken. As far as I'm convinced, it's nowhere. So this is a strange story, which constructed in a certain way, which looks rational and flow consistently, which contains certain important elements. That this is what essentially the story is the following. Someone got killed, and the killer is from the family. Most likely he was looking for inheritance, whatever was his motivation, and they accused someone else, and there was an investigation ongoing. Then Musa surprised them by asking them, God, I order you to slaughter a cow. And they will say to shock, are you making a mockery out of us? First of all, explain you how Bani Israel was treating their messengers, give you that. They did not have the necessary respect. They did not understand the meaning of messengerhood. They were very low level of mentality. Nevertheless, they were better still than most nations at that time. And then he said, I take refuge to Allah. I am not ignorant to make a joke about such an issue. We are investigating a murder. It's not a matter of joking. Anyway, show how they are making things complicated for themselves. So giving us a hint, don't do the same. Cow, get any cow. Say, oh, just slaughter a cow. Say, what kind of a cow? If it's a divine command, it must be a special cow. According to their imagination, they want to dictate to Allah how he should behave according to their mind, not about his pure command. Exactly like Iblis, he said, I am better than him, refusing to prostrate, which is obviously not also in the old scripture. There's no story like that in the old scripture. Anyway, the story streamlined, and then at the end, a piece of wood was touched to him. He was revived. He pointed to the killer and died, etc., etc. And the Quran comment is that also to give you an example how Allah resurrects the dead, settle the issue of the resurrection. That is possible. Resurrection, bodily resurrection is possible. The resurrection at the end of time is not necessarily in this body. The Quran settles that elsewhere in the Quran. But in this point, because the Bani Israel has this dispute that before Christ and centuries before, from the record we have, is it a resurrection spiritually or bodily and so on? And what's the meaning of a spiritual resurrection? All of this settled by this. Don't bother about it. It will be a resurrection suitable for this creature, which you can call bodily or another body or a spiritual, they call it whatever it is. This is possible, and you have seen it now. And end of story. And also the killer has been identified. All of this has been happening in front of them. You compare that to the Pentateuch, the 5 books. Nowhere is the story united this way. Yes, there's this heifer, and there's a sacrifice, and what a priest should do to purify himself, because with the bloodshed he becomes impure, but by this specific type of heifer, if it is sacrifice, he can purify himself and the land by the burned ashes of this heifer. Anyway, it's very complicated. You can check it in Talmud and so on. And that's what they plan now to do in the top of the Zion mountain, and establish a temple according to their imagination. So that story, first of all, is shocking. Where did Muhammad construct the story? Streams to the Quran very nicely and logically. Genius. But what's the motivation for it to invent such a story, which no components they indicate that way? It settles all these issues. You could use that really, reverse. Okay, we have assumed he may be ingenious who doing that, or taken from some people. Who are these people? How ingenious they are? Or it's a divine revelation. This will tip the balance strongly in the side of divine revelation, because it clarifies so many issues in Bani Israel. Let's go to a more trivial point. In the story of Talut, differs than what in the book of Samuel. He mentioned a trivial fact casually. It seems to be trivial. And they say, وَقَتَلَ دَاوُدُ جَالُوتَ. Dawood is the one who killed Jalut. Everyone knows that. No, not everyone. Go to the book of Samuel. You see in one I think number so and so on, I must remember the number of the verse there, that David is the one who killed Goliath with the sling, the famous thing. But lo and behold, for 3-4 lines, there's another line claiming another man killed the Goliath without a sling. So obviously, some writer inserted that. Therefore, some anti-Davidian party inserted that. So it's clarified in the book. This book, it contains some fabrication. At least this one is a fabrication. Because it can't be possible David is the one who killed him with a sling and the other guy killed him with this thing. I don't remember the name of the guys. You can check the book of Samuel. So just go and open it. So it clarifies. So that David killed first. We're talking about a major story about appointing a king and the sneaking way of Bani Israel. They want a kingdom for themselves and claiming they want to do jihad and so on. That's the side the Quran explain that they are lying. They are not truthfully really wanting jihad. They want to be kings. When they were surprised by this, the tallest man in the country will be a king. They were in a state of shock and arguing and back and forth. But then the first that. Also the issue there, interesting, is that the prophet Samuel gave them an ayah, said the ayah from Allah for that. They don't accept even that because of their stubbornness and diseases in their heart. What the prophet told them, a sign of his is that the tabut, the ark of the covenant, will be carried by angels. Now we don't know what the angels, how they materialized in the real world, but by angels. If we check that in Samuel, there's nowhere that, but a story similar to that is attributed to Gideon, the one they call Gideon Shalit. In the book of Judges, the prophets are judges before that. So is Muhammad so dumb that he takes the story from Gideon attributed to Talut? It's very remote. Why should he do that? So how come that it is instead of here, it is there? So there's some old fabrication in these books and the book of Judges, because all of these have been written really after the exile. So there's plenty of fabrication, putting together and fixing things, trying to fix things. So let's say there's a red flag. Read carefully. There are some problems there. That's all what Quran says. So the ayah confirms this book. That's the importance of this point is that to exonerate Talut from what they have, because the tendency in the book of King 1 and 2 and the book and the Chronicles 1 and 2 seems to be the Davidian party got the upper hand, but the other party, the Talutian party, or his descendants claim to be from Talut, they were able to sneak some poison here and there, and this is reflected if you compare it from this point of view. This dispute, which all led to the split of the kingdom, the North Kingdom Israel, run by the one who alleged to be descending from Talut, and the central kingdom or the southern kingdom of Judea. So we have Judea and Samaria, Judea and Israel. Israel was defunct earlier, and then followed the area was occupied by people they call the Samarian or Samaria. And they were regarded really as non-Jews and were cast out and regarded as Kafir and not Israelite, because they were really infested with paganism and Baal worship. So it gives you a hint in that direction. That hint is in. That what you have is this full of fabrication. Review it again, at least. That's again an evidence for the prophethood of the Prophet. So that's, I'm just applying in 2 cases. There are many other cases of that. So it's true in هذا قال القصة على البشر أكثر الذي هم فيها. The most of what they dispute about most fundamental things. The fine details and story, that's not relevant. Quran is not going to waste time with that. It's not going to waste time with that. Okay, so carry on. The next ayah. So it's true. This Quran really clarifies many things by really putting one landmark here, few landmarks, which clarifies most what they dispute between the various functions of the Israelite before the exile, which we have only records written by after exile, and the after exile, which we have the records in our hands, as confirmed by the Dead Sea Scrolls and what we have in our hands, and the Dead Sea Scrolls and what we have in our hand, by comparison, confirm that the copying process, how reliable it is, and that there is deliberate fabrication here and there also. So this needs really a serious study for Muslims. It's not done by Muslims. It's done by non-Muslims, but they cannot get out of their cocoon. They from inside. From inside, you have to look from outside. Then you get really consistent theory. Nobody did that until now in a serious way, unfortunately. Okay, carry on. Next slide. Just a hint in that area.
وَإِنَّهُ لَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And verily, it is a guidance and a grace unto all who believe in it. Next translation. And it is guidance and mercy for the believers.
Yeah, that's the nature of the Quran. So that's clarifying the past by just few tips here and there, enough to put such landmarks to smash all the recording and show where the fabrication starts in the main key points. And then the rest you can develop scholarly if needed, and if the things warrant that. As I said, Muslim contribution in that area is relatively little, unfortunately, or non-existent. Their internal discussion, yeah, it's quite developed, but it's from inside without taking any outside output. So it's going like someone inside the house with closed windows and trying to speculate about the outside world. That's no way. You have to open the window. They didn't open the window. Yeah, carry on.
وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ يَقْضِي بَيْنَهُمْ بِحُكْمِهِ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْعَلِيمُ. Verily, O believer, thy sustainer, again, thy Lord will judge between them in his wisdom, for he alone is almighty, all-knowing. Next translation. Your Lord will judge between them by his wise judgment, for he is revered, the all-knowing.
Between them who? Everyone mentioned before. The believer, they may have also dispute in the future, which we have know it has happened. And the believers with the Bani Israel, and the Bani Israel between themselves. All the disputant, ultimately, if it is not settled by rational discourse in dunya, and some of it can be settled, some cannot be settled, because most disputant are really not honest in the dispute, and they're unwilling to give up their bias and so on. The judgment will be on Yawm al-Qiyamah, clarifying all that with absolute certainty and cleaning that completely. But even in dunya, some of that could be done, provided it is done with the honesty and non-bias, and really the real intention to reach to the truth, not to confirm what I have got from my parents and others, or from my school of thought, or from Ahmed bin Hanbal, or from Muhammad al-Massari. No. What is the truth? Can we assert the truth in these issues? Going back to rational principles, stage by stage, until the zero level. If we do that, we can assert the truth in many things, and then we'll have further evidences of prophethood and divine revelation. If we don't do that, there's no way we're going to get settled. But in any case, your Lord will judge that, most likely, for many people who were stubborn and chose to follow their desires and their traditions, or their whatever motivation they have, which is not leading to the truth. It will be too late. It will be just to rebuke them publicly in Yawm al-Qiyamah. And as I said, the truth, for that you need to give up your biases, but you need always to ask yourself 2 questions in any position you take, or any dispute and so on, in participation. Why I am created? I should set that question before. And if I'm created to, as the Quran established, and this is the reason it dictates, that's the only thing which can make sense, to enslave yourself to Allah, to submit to him fully and absolutely, then This means I have to obey any command come from him. Are there any commands come from him? Let me ascertain. So check all prophethood and so on, and check what we seem to be with certitude or close to certitude of prophethood. And then what came from that prophet, again, it may be narrated probably, I've cleaned that. And then what I am commanded. We know there are many commands which are established with certitude, like don't kill, don't steal, don't that. That's in the Old Testament, New Testament, and Islam. So I'm commanded that. I'm not commanded to dispute who killed, for example, and is Dawood a good man or bad? That is a secondary issue. We can discuss that. But if I know that, then I will approach the issue with a pure heart, not being a partisan to David because he was a great king and he established our kingdom, so I have to defend him. No, that's irrelevant. But a secondary issue, there are more fundamental issues. I have to settle them on these grounds. So always ask yourself for why I have been created, what I have been commanded. If you have settled that, then you may be able then to approach any other issue with some kind of level of honesty as humanly possible, obviously. And then you have the keys to reach to the truth. You will be able to take your ego out that as much as humanly possible, because it's not supposed to do it completely, but approach that. If you have that intention, you will get to the truth. If you don't have that intention, you will be grinding like a donkey. That's it. Always in disputed issues, say, okay, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Let us see the evidence of the right and the evidence of the wrong. And go in a dialogue like that. Okay, you said this and this with evidence and so on, but there's an objection of this and this, the other side this and this, there's objection. If you do that honestly, in most cases, you'll be able to settle many questions. Yeah, that's really the approach. But you have to train yourself to go level 0. And this is really the main step number 1. If you got that, most likely the other step can be learned with struggling with yourself and so on. Okay, next ayah.
Next ayah. فتوكل على الله إنك على الحق المبين. Hence, place thy trust in God alone, for behold, that in which thou believest is truth self-evident.
Yeah.
And next translation. So put your trust in God, you are on the path of clear truth.
Yeah. So he's addressing now an illiterate man who received the revelation. He may be doubting himself at the beginning, is that really, or there's some sort of satanic event, or that's the reason he went to Waraq ibn Nawfal. That's the best way for a prophet to assert his own prophethood, not by miraculously having conviction, which many prophets had just immediately. Allah is capable of creating conviction you have this way. But this other way is the rational way, like Ibrahim, like Muhammad as-Salam. And then with comparing what the man of the scripture says, and later on in discussion with Bani Israel, it is obvious that this is verifying what they have and show their fallacy. And he knows he received that from a revelation now, and just confirmed that. So based on that, what the Quran is addressing the messenger and the rest of the Ummah, obviously, with the messenger directly. So based on that, what I told you before that, about Bani Israel and what the Quran, this guidance and so on, and you know now for certainty in your heart that you're receiving a revelation from the sister existing, the exalted and majestic, then trust on him. The next step is just trust on that, because this is what rationality dictates. Rationality, not a blind faith, true faith based on rationality. Tawakkal Allah, knowing that you are on the truth, evident, self-evidence. You are on the truth, the truth, self-evidence. The truth of these revelations and these messages, not the absolute truth, which is Allah Himself. But that's from the Allah. Absolute truth is the truth evident. So know that. The next step is that obviously that needs to be repeated many occasions, because Muhammad is ultimately a human being. There will be moments say, oh, is that true? It happens to everyone. And that's what happened, for example, to some Sahaba. You started questioning yourself. That happens. Even to the messenger. But the Quran addressed to him, remember that you are a messenger. This is just whispering with the devil. Some Sahabi ask a messenger of Allah, worrying, say, messenger of Allah, sometimes we have some thoughts and ideas crossing our mind. We prefer to be burned into a cinder without even expressing it. They said, did you find that? They said, yes. Say, this is the pure of faith, pure of iman, of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he added that in another hadith, on the same hadith, Alhamdulillah, alladhi radda kaydahu ila al-waswasa. Thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he reduced his plotting, meaning the devil, to just waswas. He whisper in your mind an idea and retreat quickly. Because if you persist, you will expose him immediately and go back. This will happen because you are a finite being. There's no way a finite being can be absolutely shielded. No way. And this he advised, for example, another hadith, the people will ponder, this is created by Allah, no doubt. This tree is descending from that tree. So essentially, the infinite regress. Until they say, it's clear that Allah created all of these things. Then the devil whispers, but who created Allah? This is not any question, because if you go with the chain of causes and so on to the initial cause, by necessity, it must end in the initial cause, then it must stop there. Otherwise, you go to infinite regress, which is an eternally contradictory. But the devil knows that is behind your horizon of immediate vision of the mind, because you are a finite being. For an infinite being, for Allah Himself, this is so evident. He may be smiling to our wavering around about this point. But for us, it's not possible because we are finite. So he plays the trick. Man khalaq Allah. So if you reach this level, what the advice of Allah, then stop there. Say, A'udhu billahi min shaitan rajim. This is a satanic whisper. The only way say, that's impossible. The initial one must be uncreated. That's what it must be uncreated. So eternal in some sense, necessarily existing in some sense, which then the philosophers and people of theology can develop further and analyze and expand more in a formal way, almost to a level of mathematical precision. But that's it. Very simple. The argument is correct. The trees came from another tree. There's 1 million years ago, or billion years ago. The earth is formed in such a way that trees could grow, while in Mars, no trees could grow, etc., etc. Okay. And then the initial one is also an event, Big Bang. Okay, whatever it is, the description of physics. So it must be an initiator. Let's call that initiator Allah. Who created that? Doesn't make any sense. It's the final one. Otherwise, infinite regress, which is essentially the internal contradiction. Infinite regress is impossible. If you accept infinite regress, meaning you accept that something could be true and false at the same time, reason collapses. You accept insanity. You have the choice between sanity and insanity. You still have a choice. Insanity is impossible. If you go into insanity, you turn into insane and either locked in the mental institution or you kill yourself. So it's not something which you can live with. So you must assume this rationality, this reason, although it's limited, but fundamentally correct. And it has come from that being which is absolutely correct. We hold with iron fist to that. Holding to iron fist, still your mind will go the same chain, never ending, the devil will wish you whisper. Then you say, A'udhu billahi min shaitan rajim. I know it is the devil. It's an absurd question. Man khalaq Allah. A'udhu billahi min shaitan rajim. We know that he's the creator, but not created. The ultimate end of all chains of causality. Must be. There's no other way. Other way meaning we give up sanity. We give up reason. Right? So that's examples of that. So فتوكل على الله إنك على الحق المبين. Next ayah.
Next ayah. إنك لا تسمع الموتى ولا تسمع الصم الدعاء إذا ولوا مدبرين. First translation. But verily, thou canst not make the dead hear, and so too thou canst not make the deaf of heart hear. This call when they turn their backs on thee and go away.
Yeah.
Next translation. You certainly cannot make the dead hear the truth, nor can you make the deaf hear the call when they turn their backs and walk away.
Okay, so the messenger is in a state of shock. I talk to the people rationally, bring them the evidences which I see as clear like the daylight. And still they are not accepted. So he feels a grief. Try desperate to find a way to reach them. Allah tell him, don't grieve. They are essentially dead. The talk here is not dead in the graves that what the Wahhabi think. That's you can conclude, but it's not that, because their narrow mentality, they're stuck with the graves and the grave worship and so on. They will never get out of this mess. That does not address that. The dead, you cannot live here, and give the metaphor of the dead in the grave, which are disintegrated. They are dead. They have no senses anymore. They will not hear you as being dead in a material sense. But also those who are not listening, who are not willing to accept, they are spiritually and mentally dead. Although they look alive, they're going in the market, buying, selling. So to fool you that they are alive and they obviously behave in the market in a rational way, they will buy good. If they have if they find goods which are inferior to a certain price, the superior one, they will take the superior one. Obviously, it's a price. No, rational people will not do that. So we think, these people have mind. They look quite reasonable. They're good in business. So they should be good in discerning what the message I'm bringing to them is in the balance of evidences, the better one. No, because they are dead. You are fooled. They are dead. Their rationality is not effective in the area which you address. They're effective maybe in buying and selling and picking up fruits. Nobody will pick a rotten fruit and leave the good fruit unless he has not seen it. You can't rationalize that because this is immediate material acceptance. But if you talk about transcendental truths, about God, the day of judgment, and so on, you need another kind of rationality, a higher level of discourse. These people are dead in this regard. Or the one who are deaf, especially if they turn their back and go away. You can scream as much as they don't perceive your screaming. So you're wondering why they are not turning around. Because they're deaf. Deaf in the mental sense, in the rational sense, not in the physical sense. So you could scream or not scream, doesn't make any difference. You could speak loud or no difference. The content of your speech is not reaching in their brain and being understood and processed. It just sounds are reaching and words are reaching, which they, like for example, when they send, I think it was Utbah ibn Rabi'ah to argue with the Messenger of Allah, and then he said, if you want women, if you like women, we have very beautiful women, we'll get you the best, the most beautiful woman you order, we give it to you. No mahar requested. If you want kingdom, we'll appoint you a king, but tell us what you want. And I said, did you finish it, Abu Utbah? I think it's Utbah, Abu Shayba or Shayba, his son is Utbah. Said yes. And just he read the opening of Surah, I think, Hamim, Tanzil min ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Fussilat. Until to the Sajda, he turned and made Sajda. I think that's, if I remember the story correctly. And Utbah was in a state of shock. So he went back to Quraysh, he confused, his face different than Abu Jahl said. He came with another face, beware, maybe he is influenced by Muhammad. And they asked him, what did Muhammad tell you? He said something, I don't know what he said. He was in a state of shock. And what Muhammad said, we see the Surah Fussilat, there's no odd words there. It was just qala, qultu, the basic words which even the lowest eloquent person will use in the market. There's no strange word there. Nothing. Standard Arabic words, standard Arabic sentences, structures. But he is unable to comprehend the meaning. It does not resonate with anything in his mind. So who's confused? Say, you did not say something, he said something. I was unable to read. Is it poetry? Is it sophisticated? What they call the opposite of poetry? What's it? Prosa? Is it this? Is it nasheed? It's not clear what kind of language is using. A strange language. I could not make sense what this language even is structured linguistically. And he sat in his home pondering for several days. But he could not overcome his arrogance and pride. And then Abu Jahl said, Muhammad must have bewitched. This is witchcraft. And then he persuaded him to say it's witchcraft. Then this way he blocked himself from the moment you find an imaginary solution, because witchcraft is a word which is used for something which you cannot define what it is. Witchcraft is illusion. But what's the meaning of illusion? It's an illusion of what? And how this illusion is to get you to be in a state of illusion and all of these things. Then you head to something which is ill-defined. Then you are now lost. You cannot get any way out. Because it's very easy to refer anything to witchcraft or to illusion. Because illusion is not rationally discernible. You can anything say it's an illusion. And then you cannot assert anything. Even your own mind, you can say it's an illusion. I'm in a state of illusion, then you have chosen irrationality. You have gave up reason, referring to that. That's the reference which will kill you. So that's what happens. So you hear the words and so on, but you are not able to make any sense of them. And then ultimately, either you say, that must be rational. My rational competence dictates that makes sense. Let me go back to him and ask him what's the sense of that. Explain me more in a more simple-minded language, if you need that. Or you refer to sihr, witchcraft, paradoxical things. illusions, and then you are lost. You have decided to give up rationality. Rationality is gone. And you are dead mentally, spiritually. Although you can go to the market and still pick up a good business transaction. But you are dead. Okay, next ayah.
Next slide, 1 second. وما أنت بحاد الأمي عن دلالتهم إن تسمع إلا من يؤمن بآياتنا فهم مسلمون. Just as thou canst not lead the blind of heart out of their error, none canst thou make hear save such as are willing to believe in our messages, and thus surrender themselves unto us.
So
Yes,
this is first of all, the Syrian translation would be similar.
Yeah, and you cannot guide the blind away from their error. You cannot make anyone hear you except those who believe in our signs, and submit to us.
The second one does not use blind in the heart. Actually, the blind of the heart is intended, but really the wording is for the general blind. The general blind, if he's lost, he doesn't have his stick, you cannot guide him unless you hold his hand and start guidance by touching and physically. But who will listen to you really? Who listening is the one who made the first step to see this is a messenger and have to listen attentively, understand what he's saying, because it must be the truth. But before that, there's a stage of basic listening, say, maybe he is a messenger. Let me listen carefully. Then you may end with the second phase of he's a messenger. Now I listen attentively and understand the details and benefit from it. The one who did not start with that, we listen for the Quran, say, it's a fabrication. I know Muhammad is a fabricator, an imposter. Let me find something, a fault there. You'll find everything you imagine as a fault. I think, or you could think to find something like a fault. You could. That would be your starting point. Instead of saying, okay, you mentioned the story. Let me give an example of someone in the internet recently was commenting on the issue of Dhul Qarnayn. And the guy claims there's a myth in a book before Islam. He claims it's known to be before Islam. And I once addressed that we have no evidence that it's before Islam or after Islam, but assume it's before Islam. And mention this story and say it's known before Muhammad. Okay, fine. Okay. And seems to be Muhammad has seen it. He claims that. We don't have no evidence because they're illiterate. That's okay. Let's give that assumption. And then based on that and his conclusion, for some reason he concludes that this is the myth. How do you know that is what is in this ancient book, assuming it's really ancient and before Muhammad and Muhammad did it? How do you know it's a myth? It is a book of collection of myths. It's myth according to you. It may be originally really a historic story, but became so unknown so that it looks mythical, but maybe it has only historic root. You have discounted this from the beginning. So if Muhammad mentioned it in the Quran, you have already established that it has been a myth without, definitely a myth. No, it never existed, someone like Dhul Qarnayn. You have then shot yourself in the foot. You establish something without it being established with certitude. And took it a base to say he must be a fabricator and this story is an evidence. Instead of saying, it's strange. Even if it's for him, even if he has seen it, possibly seen it, etc. Maybe it has a historic root. If he's a messenger, it must show that it must have a historic root. If he's not a messenger, we must refute on other ground. We must find something else, balancing the books in the world, balancing the issue on either this side and this side. But because you started, these guys started, that this was before Muhammad, he must have seen it. All of these assumptions, most likely they are wrong, but let's assume. And this is a book which collects various myths, dated 550 or something. So well before Muhammad was born. Okay, we assume that you are correct on that. Even you can ask him, where did you get the dating and so on, if we want to be picky, but just assume all of that. And the books have collection of myths and stories. Some of them may be having no historic root or so. Some may be completely mythical. We don't know. And some may be legendary. Legendary is something which has a root, but it is so embellished that became like a myth. So all these three possibilities there. How did you ascertain that it must be a myth which never existed? And Muhammad was fooled by it. How did you assess that? So you start with an assumption which is not well established. try to establish an issue which is an important issue. Is he the messenger or not? Is he receiving revelation or is he a fabricator? So you shut yourself in the foot, you will never find any guidance this way. You see my point? Because the evidence of Prophet Muhammad is not only the issue of the Qarnayn. There are many other issues completely independent of that, which has to be scrutinized also. And if you scrutinize all of those and establish that he is a messenger, that Quran is not from himself, nor from his subconscious, nor from a committee who were hiding in a cave and he goes to them at the right to go. It's like this. Or someone called Malik ibn Habib, or Bahira, the monk, and all these stories, some early no Orientalist now is so shameless like the one in the 19th century to say something like that. It's a joke. People have given that up anyway. If that's none of this, and there's other supportive evidence that must be of divine origin, or at least with the balance of evidence is the first step, then we have to go back with this, then this story verified that there's a root of the Qarnayn. Now the question, which person in history may be this Qarnayn? That will be a matter of dispute. No, we can't study history, but we know, but if we have established with certitude with other evidences that he is a messenger, talk about the Qarnayn, then we check in history. We find difficulties because the common story is the Skadal Macedonia, but it can't be. It doesn't fit on him for various aspects. It turns out to be almost certainly, from my point of view, Darius the Mede. Darius means the one who do horns. Anyway, the word Darius means two horns. That's the name is clear. But the Mede, who is this Darius the Mede? That one was mentioned essentially in the only document we have in our hand is in Daniel, and has been meticulously hidden by the priest of Marduk in Babylon, which made the king of Babylon and the one who achieved victory against the Babylonian made it Koresh. In reality, Koresh was a commander and the son-in-law of Darius. Darius was the real king. But with a trick and in recording in such a way, they made Koresh be the front man and Darius in the background. I gave him another name. They called the Jabbar, the usurper, the oppressor, because he was very negative with them, while Koresh was accommodating. Now we know that if we study that carefully, I have a research published long ago. Inshallah, if Allah give us enough life and time, I will go and improve on it with the more information we have gained in meanwhile. And I publish that in time. I have it in my document. I will review it one day. So we have now a candidate. Was not in anybody's mind in time past. And maybe someone else before all of those, maybe the founder of the Kurdish kingdom, before even the Kurdish Persian Empire established by Darius the Mede and Koresh, was maybe someone in a darker history. But the best candidate seemed to be this one. So now we are guided in the right direction. So the way I mention it is that the way you start, if you start with the wrong start deliberately, because if you have a biased idea before, which almost certainly has no evidence, it's just an assumption, because the guy doing that, these two guys in the video, I put it right here for you in Enterprise, is coming from this bias. And he's not critical enough to ask him, okay, maybe it's in the book before and so on, but maybe it has a historical root. Not every collection of, for example, the myths in the Iliad and Odyssey, the books of Homer, it seems to be it has a historic root. And there was a city here called Troy. And there was a fight because of certain reasons, but later embellished and became this legendary two famous books, which are obviously a master art in poetry and so on. And also gods being inserted there and imaginary things and all these things. But there's a historic root. It's not complete myth, never existed, no. It had been so embellished that it became over legendary, almost to the myth side. But it is, we can't assert it with archaeology and other things and other evidences and so on. So that's this trap which people go if they start with a bias, which is not proven with absolute certitude. Then it's not a bias. It's a fact which had been established. But you have to establish it first with certitude. Let's say with the level of, if you study a messenger, you have to start with premises which are so well established, you could really, in Yawm al-Qiyamah, if you ask it, it looks to me that is almost the level of almost a mathematical and logical and rational proofs. Then you have an excuse. Otherwise, you don't have. Good. Carry on.
Okay, next ayah. وإذا وقع القرآن وإذا وقع القول عليهم أخرجنا لهم دابة من الأرض تكلمهم أن الناس كانوا بآياتنا لا يوقنون. Now, as for the deaf and blind of heart, that's in brackets, when the word of truth stands revealed against them, we shall bring forth unto them out of the earth a creature which will tell them that mankind had no real faith in our messages. Next translator. And when the judge comes against them, we will bring forth a beast from the earth to tell them that truly people had no true faith in our signs.
I think both are not very. What the second said, when the qawl, when the moment of the final decision comes, which most scholars is that refers to the future, did not happen yet. We will bring a creature out of the earth, dabba. Dabba meaning something which is have weight. It walks to make a sound. It's not a spiritual being like people perceive angels and jinn to be. Let's say angels and beings is something from the category of electromagnetic waves. They move with a speed, and if they stop, they have no mass. So I'm just giving a physical example. But dabba is something which has really can be when you observe it, it can be standing still and can move. So it has weight, mass, and if he walks on the earth or something similar, it will make a sound. That's dabba, dip, 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 like an elephant, like a lion, like a human being. While people seem to be agreeing on feeling that angels and jinn are more like electromagnetic waves. And this is hinted by that angels are made from nur, from light, and the devil made from fire, which is a certain wavelength of light, or something like that. Hints, that's only the hints the Quran gives in this direction. So a dabba, so it's a creature of material who has an initial mass. It's not mass zero. It has to move by the speed of light all the time. Okay. So we'll get such a creature from earth, which talks to them. Then another sentence, أن الناس كانوا. That's not what the Brisha is saying, most likely. It is the comment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do that so that the people at that time, which should be in the future, will know that they were not believing before that, but now they see it and believe. And there are many hadith about this dabba. Now we, since the Quran mentioned it, we see what has been hadith narrated, and the hadith, obviously we have to check them and so analyze them. I did not check them because first of all, the issue of dabba coming from the earth and talking to the people has been never mentioned in the previous books and so on. So there's no danger that the Sahabis and the Tabi'in who narrated that took it from previous scripture. This danger is valid if we talk about the coming of Isa. I think there's a certain danger there, but it's not very, very persuasive. I'm discussing that. There's a reason to say the coming back of Isa and the Dajjal may be question mark there in certain issues, not all of them. Because there we have some tawatur. But here, so there's no danger, so we don't need to be over scrutinizing. So we can verify the hadith in the classical way. It seems to be, there's many hadith saying one of the final signs of the Dajjal, the final one, because the major one, which is very close to the end. There's 10 major ones, 10 major big ones, and there are many small ones, which some of them have been fulfilled. Actually, if you take all the evidences from the various hadith, that the day of judgment or the end of this world, that is, the end of this world, is near, is the sending of Isa ibn Maryam. Seems to be the first sign, which is done that there's the end of the world is imminent, coming soon. How soon is soon? That can be discussed, but coming soon is where it starts. Before that, there was no hint that it is anytime soon. People could say it may be billions here, millions here, but here it is coming soon. In the scale of thousands and tens of thousands, not billions and trillions of years. The end, not the beginning. The resurrection may be trillions years after in a new fashioned universe. We're not going to go to that. But this one is Isa ibn Maryam. And then there's intermediate ones like the victory of Islam. Like, for example, that the people will make construction which is higher than Abu Qubais, higher than we have now. That this clock is higher than Abu Qubais. You can see the clock from the east, northeast of Mecca, while if you look toward the Haram is shielded by the mountain called the Khandama, and part of it is Abu Qubais. Now you can see the top of that rock. So the building and the construction are higher than Abu Qubais. And the hadith say, when you see the building reaching the height of Abu Qubais and above, then know that the issue is nearby. There's only a hint of nearby. But then these final 10 is coming in. One of them is the Dabba, is a hadith. It says the person looked to us from a house. He was in the top second floor and looked down and say, what you're discussing? Say, we're discussing about Sa'ah. So don't worry about the Sa'ah. It will not come until you see 10 ayahs. And he mentioned the like the volcanoes. I think the volcano of Adan, not this volcano which has happened in Harat Rahat. That's done. No. That's one of the recent one. This one. When you see these 10, then it is imminent. It's a matter of days, weeks, and months. No more. 1 or 2 generations. These 10. And there's dispute about some of the 10s and so on. That's fine details. We don't need to bother about that. Now, about the Dabba, many stories are there. One of it that it emerges, and when the people see it's approaching, we don't know what's this Dabba. Is it like a dinosaur? Is it like a dragon? We don't know. And she stamps everyone, mu'min or kafir. And some people, when you see the Dabba, they think, I maybe get away by starting to pray. And the Dabba tell him, Ya Fulan, knowing his name. Now you are praying. Before that, you are not praying. Now you see me and you're praying. It's too late. And stamp his head with kafir. Yes, we don't know how this will happen. Is it really wordly, verbally, or metaphorically? But there's so many hadith about this Dabba, which totally say this is. Someone could say it's actually some kind of machines now which are run by artificial intelligence. They can classify something. Maybe. Anyway, when it happens, we'll know that is the Dabba. And it will stamp you. But gave you in a form which give you basic hints about it. So that's it. I think this is the better interpretation. It's not just the Dabba saying that you don't believe in it. The Dabba will, Allah is commenting that way. Whatever, believing or not believing, it's a fact. You feel it and touch it and stamp in your head. You have no escape, but it will be too late. Then repentance after that does not take a sense, because the repentance and come back to Allah is the time where you have choice. Now we have no choice. This is so compelling and so overwhelming. It's like death when you die and you see the angels of punishment. It doesn't help you. So I'm sorry, it's too late. It's too late. It's gone. The time of repentance is the time where you have choices. And you have to think and balance evidences. Now it's over. Now we have certainty. The veil in front of us have been lifted. We are out of the domain of taklif, of being questioned and giving the opportunity to repent and go back. You are in the domain of certainty and punishment and accounting. Nothing can be done out. And the Quran is very clear about that, and also the Sunnah about that. So this is the Dabba. And the statement after, and the Nasa can be at is Allah saying, we'll do that near the end, because the people do not believe with our eyes, but at that time they believe will not benefit them. It's gone. The game is over. So don't wait for that. Say, I will become believer then, because then belief does not wait. Exactly like in the other ayah say, it is repentance of do sins by being ignorant or being in the case of anger, so impulsive behavior and so on, and not for those who insist on doing the sins until the moment of death, or those who are kafir until the moment of death, because these will have no recourse. The moment they see the angel of death and death is certain, then the door of repentance is closed, because there's certainty now. You are the domain of testing and correction and going back and repenting is closed. Now in the domain of accountability. حتى الحرب قال إني تبت الآن ولا الذين يموتون هم كفار. The one who died on kufr, resurrected. I know now. I repent. I know it's the akhirah. It's too late. That's not the time to know akhirah. And those who insist on their sins until they die. And they say the death with certainty. We're certain of death, not that they guess that I'm going to die. I'm sick now. Well, that's not the certainty of death. Is a moment which only Allah knows how it is, and the one who is dying knows that's the certainty of death. Okay, so that's I think the better explanation is that really there will be a dabba, What is this Dabba exactly? Is it a machine? Is it artificial intelligence? We now have artificial intelligence, which open maybe certain gates, which we don't know about, but let's see. Let's see. Hopefully, we will not be at that time. I think this is well down after us. Alhamdulillah. Hopefully, we never know. It may come tomorrow. We don't know. But hopefully, the other signs which may be preparing that do not seem to be there here yet. Hopefully. But when it comes, you will see it. But as I said, as the hadith said clearly, then someone tried to escape by and no, oh, the catastrophe is here. Let me start praying. And they turn to the Qibla, say, Allahu Akbar. And Dabba said, no, start praying. Stamp his head with kafir. It doesn't help you now, after you have seen me. Now we have seen certitude. It's closed, as if you have died already. You are died. You are spiritually dead. Anything you do after that is irrelevant. You are finished. You are done. So this must be very late. And after that, then there is the wind and the fire from the east and the volcano of in Aden, which is a super volcano, erupts and drive the people to the north, maybe before or around that time. These are very late major things which came in the hadith, which may be worth studying by some people who want to study these things, sign of end of time, just for the fun or the, I'll say. And some of them, for example, that the fire coming from the bottom of Aden, that's the word used by the hadith, it's flowing slowly so the people are escaping toward the north, towards Sham. Sham is mean north here, really. Indicate that at that time it was impossible to know that the bottom of Aden is actually, the city of Aden now, is actually in the caldera of a huge super volcano, as big as Yellowstone Park, or maybe bigger. It's impossible at the time to know anybody to know that. So say fire coming from the bottom of Aden seems to be impossible according to any knowledge at that time. Nobody knew that there was a caldera there. It doesn't look like a caldera at all. No way to guess that. Must be by revelation. So we may use it as the knowledge of that. And then it is also telling in the future it will flow out. And it will be of some kind of basaltic lava, because say the lava will be so slow that the people running away from it to the north will have the opportunity even to sleep overnight. And then at Fajr time, someone say, wake up, the fire is closed, let's move. And then they move all the day, and then they are tired and sleep. And the next day, wake up and move, something like that. So which indicates it will be a basaltic one, not an explosive Ingembrite one, and things like that. Okay? I just mentioned that casually. You know, I don't like thinking about these future events and eschatology, especially Imran Hussein is being now dumbstruck. Although recently he blubbered something. I don't follow it. If you think he has done something interesting, bring it and we can discuss it.
Sheikh, there's only so much IQ points I can lose by analyzing what he says. There's another token person called Professor Jang who made a fluke on some discovery, and now everyone wants to give bayah to him now. Is this
Which one? Who is it?
Professor Zhang, some
Chinese?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's combining various things in
he's laughable.
But his combination is a little bit more rational and more.
Yeah, the thing is, you know, honestly, these people, I just don't understand. I think it's sponsored adverts because there's nothing remarkable.
It could be sponsored. It could be someone trying to do an ijtihad, make sense of the reality. It could be many things.
I had a really good rebuttal of there's a phrase which says you throw enough. You know, a lot of these guys.
I'm not saying it can not be rebutted. I'm saying it's not necessary that it's an agenda, someone behind him. Maybe his mind is working this way.
No. What I mean is that you have these people who achieve sudden prominence, though intrinsically there is nothing remarkable about them. So it's usually through sponsored.
I agree with you, but the prominence is because the current events forces everyone to go look for these things. That's the reason.
I can name three people who I know personally who have made.
No, there are in America many other things coming forward and so on. On grounds of the Book of Revelation and so on. No, the events happening is so shocking and so unexpected that people who have some religious sentiments or half belief in believe scripture, they try to find a way. And they start going into speculation. So it doesn't need to be an agenda that is moved by the American government or that. I mean that it be just moved by the events is so shocking, and the people don't make any sense out of that. That's what I mean. Not I mean this cannot be rebutted or rebutted. It can be rebutted. No, that's not the issue. But we should not assume it is somehow an agenda moving that forward. No, that's what I mean. That's what we should not make such a quick judgment unless we see the circumstances so odd and so unbelievable that many people are. Did anything have in the scripture? Did anything have been said by the prophets before? Is that contradicting some prophecies? Are these prophecies maybe false? Maybe you believe that these books are authentic, they're not authentic? These questions are put forward by many people also.
Also, if anyone listening is aware of anything of substance that's been
yeah,
said,
then we can discuss it casually.
yeah. Also, if you go to the channel, you'll see two videos. I uploaded that one. The eschatology.
What I'm warning for, don't have any perceived concept about that. Look at things as neutral as possible, and then we find a refutation or verification or putting new questions which may be relevant, things like that. Okay? That's all what I'm saying. No, not that is cannot be rebutted. Many of things he said, even on rational grounds and balance of power, is wrong. Because it doesn't take important things like, for example, what's happening, for example, in Iran now and so on. He still concludes that the Zionist agenda controlling the world is going to somehow to come to fruition and things other will happen. I don't think this is a correct analysis, because the way he thinks about the balance of powers and so on is not really the way which looks in the depth of the reality, but it's the way we expect someone who is more or less Western educated and cannot go in a deeper structure of the reality. He cannot. If you come from the Western background, you will never be able to go to the deeper reality. You cannot take things in consideration like belief, firmness, divine intervention, the possibility of divine intervention. You will not able to take that in any structured way. But anyway, if there's anything interesting, we may be discussing it in a session. That's what I mean. Just be open and neutral, but critical and neutral. Okay. Next ayah.
Okay, next ayah. ويوم نحشرهم من كل أمة فوجا ممن يكذب بآياتنا فهم يوذعون. And on that day, we shall gather from within every community a host of those who gave the lie to our messages, and they will be grouped according to the gravity of their sins. Next translation. Watch for the day. Sorry, and warn of the day when we will gather from every nation a crowd of those who deny our messages, and they will be formed into groups.
Yeah, that's obviously clearly talking about Yom Al-Qiyamah. That's the reason the ayah before that, Dabba, is like before Yom Al-Qiyamah. So the second translation is closer, but both of them were not lucky, and they commented on that a little bit extensively about the Dabba. Okay, so that's clear. Yom Qiyamah, watch for that. It will be structured this way. Yom Qiyamah or the Mahshar could be complicated in structure, but the structure will be like for every community or nation, because Ummah mean a group which have some kind of binding. It may be, for example, the nation of a state, like let's say to America, the people there are essentially structured and bounded by the American Constitution. It's not a land. It's not like one American general said, beware, addressing the soldiers, your allegiance is not to the land, not to mountain, not to a race, to a document called the American Constitution. So this man got it right. That's what defines you as an American, that Constitution. So you should focus that you're fighting for the Constitution or against the Constitution. Don't worry about mountains. Don't tell me white and black. That's all irrelevant. So this general understood it correctly. While British, meaning the people in the British Island, it is a bit complicated because there are various nations there, and then be merged partly by force, and it's not clear if the Britons and the Anglian are the same the nation with the people of Wales, or two separate nations. One is somehow impressed, and then obviously the Scots lives as a separate nation, but somehow in a confederation with the others. And is a more complicated, but bound in a certain country, a certain people with essentially going back to a certain tribe or a genealogy. That's one type. The same with the Germans, a bit complicated because the various German tribes, but okay, main language, Indo-German and so on, and the German Nordic part, and then the Nordic people and the Viking. So various definition of a group which can be called Ummah. Ummah is a very tricky, is a group of people, but they have something binding them, either bound in time, bound in space, bound by land, bound by constitution, bound by philosophy, bound by creed, etc. So from humanity will be divided in section ummahs, distinguished, and from each ummah there will be a crowd, a group who were adamant on rejecting the message and calling it to be a lie and fabrication. These will be sorted in groups according to the severity, and they will be then will come forward in that case. And from each one, then a representative will be the one who, the imam, the leader of this group, they will be questioned in their behalf, and then matter will be settled one by one, step by step. Okay, next.
Okay, next ayah.
So Yawm al-Qiyamah, the people not just get out of the graves or whatever, where they're getting from, or in another theory, they will grow like plants. All of this is just expressing something which we have no access to it at the moment. And then they will be running wild like a herd of cows. No, it will be well organized, it will be well structured and so on. Good? Yeah.
حتى next ayah. Sorry. حتى إذا جاءوا قال أكذبتم بآياتي ولم تحيطوا بها علما عماذا كنتم تعملون, until such a time as they shall come to be judged, in brackets, and he will say, did you give the lie to my messages, even though you failed to encompass them with your knowledge, or what was it that you thought you were doing? Next translation. Until when they arrive at the place of judgment, in brackets, we will say, did you deny my messages without even trying to understand them? What were you doing?
Or what were you doing? So you see, even there, still you just give you a hint. The reason for mentioning that to show that the judgment at that will be following some kind of an absolute principle of the correct judiciary, which you can take as a model for human judiciary. The ultimate judge, or in that case, is the necessary existing who knowledge is comprehensive. He knows exactly each one on his motivation and so on. He doesn't need to ask to know what's going on. But in a court of law, when you are the judge, you have to give all parties, the opportunity to express everything, and you give them a question which is neutral. Did you do this, which I know it is the truth, or was something else there? Then the response will be different. So most of you say, no, you know exactly what it was. We were this, we were, and some may be starting repenting, and maybe some of them could be saved. We don't know the details of that. But some would be stubborn. Like I mentioned the story of the Queen's Counsel, the barrister who argued with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and refusing to accept his witness. I'm not going to mention it today. This one is story. So it will be all kinds of that. But that's the way the judge will start. Is it this or this or this? Explain to me. He gave me the full chance. And we can trust that he's giving them really the freedom. They can express themselves without him interfering with them. And this is a huge order, huge point. No intimidation, nothing. Just explain yourself. You are absolutely free to express yourself internally. I'm not going to interfere in that, although I could. But I gave you in the previous life the freedom of choice and the rationality for free. And I decided to accept all what result from that if it's abused, like insulting Allah and swearing at him and so on, just because it's so valuable that you have that. Now, you have this facility yet. Tell me. Then we'll tell you what happens now here. Knows what will happen. The various possibilities. Tell you the possibility. فعميت عليهم الأنباء. Okay. Next ayah.
Next ayah. ووقع القول عليهم بما ظلموا.
Okay, carry on. I thought about another ayah. It's another situation. Yeah.
ووقع القول عليهم بما ظلموا فهم لا ينطقون. And the word of truth will stand revealed against them in the faith of all the wrong which they had committed, and they will not be able to utter a single word of excuse, in brackets.
Yeah.
Next translation. The verdict will be handed down for their wrongdoing, and they will not speak.
They will not be able to speak. It's actually before the verdict is handed. وقع القول عليهم. Now the situation is so that they recognize, because the veil lifted of their eyes, they can see their past as if it's a television movie in front of them. And they know what mistakes they have done, what was deliberate, was not deliberate, etc. Some were not deliberate or misguided by other people. They will say, Lord, we accepted our leaders to say that and so on. We're misguided based on that trust. Yeah, we should not have trusted, but we did not have the tool at the time. So not all of them will not speak, but the majority, like especially remember, this have been from every nation, those who call our message the lie, the head of the kufr, they are the separated and they are the ranked. So these are the one addressee. And the one behind them, which are not chosen in these special groups, they are the one who say, Lord, we were led by these guys into demise, and we didn't have enough tools. And so they may have excuse. They are not mentioned there. But these leaders, the one who are separated in various ranks, these we recognize it's futile. Maybe there's one or two, like this barrister, in the story of that barrister, the Queen Council, I call it the Queen or King's Council, maybe one or two, but the majority, overwhelming majority, they will not be able even to open their mouth. They cannot speak anything, except bleak faith. I have to admit that there's nothing. We admit nothing we are going to say. It's the first one. We called your messages the lie without even doing any effort to scrutinize it and check it. Sorry, but it's gone. So just hand you, then the judgment will be handed after that. Next ayah.
Just a second. ألم يروا أنا جعلنا الليل ليسكنوا فيه والنهار مبصرا إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يؤمنون. For were they not aware that it is we who had made the night for them, so that they might rest therein, and the day to make them see? In this, behold, there are messages indeed for people who will believe. Next translation. See they not that we have made the night for them to rest in, and the day to give them light? Verily, in this are signs for any people that believe.
Both also obviously fail to see that we are now flashback to dunya. The few ayahs before that were talking about the future. Suddenly, the scene said they don't look that as if that's the reason of the way of looking at ayah atomically and disconnecting from the sequence. That's a problem. To overcome that, you have to notice that from him, the moment beginning about the Dabba, even maybe before, it talks about the future. So flash forward. You enjoy the scene or be terrified by the scene, and then after that, suddenly he is back where we started, before we Dabba, addressing the people. Didn't you see that we made a night and the day such way, etc., etc.? Then this fact is a sign and indication for people who, again, believe. They have the basic say, maybe this whole reality around us and the change of day of night is not arbitrary, not from deaf-blind nature, which is a possible option if you do the analysis, a weak option, far away option, but there still maybe someone could argue for that the necessity existing, the initiator is just a deaf-blind nature, which should then be acting by necessity. Until most people, when they reach that level, atheists, they stop there because they don't analyze further that such an entity is impossible, cannot exist. The first actor must be acting spontaneously with freedom, so it's not a deaf-blind nature, but that's deep philosophical. Most people will not get to that. But that option is there. Assume it is that, or someone acting by choice and choosing the events in a certain way for certain purposes. The way it's synchronized, such a way that you imagine Earth, which has created such a way that day and night because of rotation and so on, fits in such a way that the biology fits with the environment. It has to fit if it's developed that way. But the initial condition resulting in some planets having that and others do not have that, although they're rotating, for example, so it's not enough to be rotating. Mercury and Venus are rotating. The same with Mars, but it has to be a certain distance. It's not enough that it's a little bit of inclination to have change of seasons in a reasonable way, which is conducive for the development of life and all of these in a complicated way, coming all of them in the same place, in especially one planetary area, and there seems to be maybe in very few planets there's maybe none except this one. It's amazing. It's shocking. It's worth considering. That's it. That's all that the ayah says. Look at that and think about it. يؤمنون that your iman at that level, when you consider that, is that maybe it is this, maybe it's this. That's enough iman. You don't get yourself in the foot, say, oh, it's a deaf, blind nature, and this is going by development. That assumption will kill you, because the other assumption is still valid. That's not a deaf blindness. It is an initiator who is acting with absolute freedom, and he have complete knowledge. Why did not consider this option and try to see which one synchronizes with this reality? Obviously, the one deaf blindness can be even defunct from the beginning. If you are philosophically oriented and studied enough mathematics and logic and so on, you can refute that. So you don't need to look at the day and night. This will be trivial for you. But assuming you are not able to do that, but at least study both options. Okay, so that's the way to look at it. If you look from a bird's view, unfortunately, previous Mufassirin and so on did not have this bird's eye view. Maybe they were not able at their time because the level of science and technology and philosophy and theology and so on time. Okay, no problem. But we have enough knowledge now to be better than that, and we should be doing better than that. Okay, next.
Okay, next slide, 1 second. ويوم ينفخ في الصور
Now back to يوم القيامة. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. ويوم ينفخ في الصور ففزع من في السماوات ومن في الأرض إلا من شاء الله وكل آتوه داخرين. And on that day the trumpet of judgment will be sounded, and all creatures that are in the heavens and all that are on earth will be stricken with terror, except as such as God wills to exempt, and in utter lowliness all will come unto him.
Yeah.
Next translation. And warn of the day on which the horn will be blown, and everyone in the heavens and on earth will be terrified, except whom God wills, and all will come to him completely humbled.
Okay, so this is now back to the day of judgment. The beginning will be a blasting of the horn. What is this horn? I say this is a picture which you can enjoy, like someone sitting, angel having a horn. So okay, if that's nice, okay, if that's synchronized with your taste, that's perfectly. If you are kind of physicists, say by the entanglement, you pull the plug on the universe, disappears. Do whatever. That's the blasting of the horn. Whatever blasting horn, there will be something blasting the horn, but it'd be so shocking for every conscious being, because it says it does not man. Man is usually for the conscious being. Ma is for everything. Man fi samawati al-ard. Everyone samawati al-ard. What are these beings? We know humans are part of this, possibly angels, other things which we don't know and know, but man, which can have rationality, understanding. Not stones. Stones will not be terrified. They're not aware about anything. So it's man fi samawati al-ard. And there's man in the samawat. Possibly dabba also, like another ayah hinted. We discussed that ayah. We mentioned that this is a hint that in samawat, meaning outside the earth, in other heavenly bodies, they may be dabba, material being similar to us. More details is not mentioned. This possibility exists. Just that hint is there. Anyway, all the way in a state of horror and shock. Except what Allah has accepted. The ancient scholars speculated that because they believe, and I think the belief is warranted, that Jannah, the paradise of the end of time, already exists now somehow, where we don't know exactly, and it's already created and already there. We may have no access to it. Maybe that the rest of the other galaxies are really the Jannah, and you will travel between stars and so on with certain facilities. Warp 7, Warp 8, or 9, like in Star Trek. So I'm just joking, but something like that. Maybe it is that. They may be being there, waiting for that moment, so they accommodate for the newcomer. Maybe, we don't know. And these will not have a shock, because they are being for Jannah already there. They are allocated to it, and they're living there. But they created for it to be the servant in the future, to be the guardian, to be the people attending to it, and things like that. Whatever it is, they will be possibly exempt from this horror of the unplugging the universe or the blasting of the horn. And all then, the one who was done obviously were terrified, because the others are not subject to resurrection. They are out of another category. These who are not terrified, all of them would be gathered to him, all of them in utter submission. The akhirin, all of them would be gathered to him. Okay, next. This is another angle to look to Yawm al-Qiyamah. Now, it's not the angle of that they will be divided in groups and so on, and nations, and that's one angle. Now it's another angle that's before that. Then the division and the classification will happen after that. Next ayah.
Okay, let me know when is a good place to stop. It's getting up to 3:45.
Okay, this mentioned. Read the next ayah if it's a new topic or continuation of this.
What actually this is the end of the page anyway, so it might be worth doing. وترى الجبال تحسبها جامدة.
Let's leave it for the next time, because this dispute about is this Yawm al-Qiyamah or in Dunya. Okay.
Okay, inshallah.
Good.
All right then.
So write the number and so on, record it.
Okay, so the next ayah we will start on is Surah Naml. That's the 27th surah, ayah 88. Okay, so everyone knows, and I can actually send that on.
With the mountains, you look at it, you think it is fixed, but it's actually passing like the clouds. This is a bit difficult to synchronize with Akhirah or Dunya, but we'll discuss next time, inshallah.
Yeah, so next week we'll probably have full Q&A, depending on how many questions we get through today.
Okay.
And tomorrow will be Tawheed as usual.
Okay. Which will be our usual time, fixed.
8 o'clock, yeah.
8 o'clock, yeah.
Inshallah. Maybe as the time gets later, we can look at changing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. So this will be our question and answer. The date is the 5th of April. Question and answer. Over to you, Professor, and anyone who wants to unmute, let us know. Otherwise, I've got some questions from that have been submitted earlier. I might go through a couple of them very quickly. So if anyone wants to raise their hands, feel free. But in the meantime, I'll just crack on with some of these previous questions. Okay, one question came from my brother who's engaged in quite a bit of discussions. He says many people say that their prayers are not answered, and some even become atheists because of that, unfortunately. So, Doctor, how do you explain the issue of prayer? And is it permissible to ask God for a miracle, such as healing from an illness, in one's prayers?
Yeah, no, it's not a miracle. Yeah, you can't. No, that's the mistake, is understanding what the meaning praying and answers. What the Quran says clearly, "Id'uni astajib lakum." And the Prophet explained that when I mentioned that so many times, is that says continue praying, because every prayer will be responded to. And don't fall in the trap that you think I pray and then see that there is a response, so he give up the prayer. Did not reach in the time of someone saying God is not there. So nobody was so dumb like 10 times. And this dumbness is usually in widespread in Christian circles, because they believe, false belief that Christ died on the cross for them. So they will say, for example, why there's a tsunami, the issue of suffering. And I remember once I mentioned the story of I was in the sabbatical year in the University of California at Berkeley. And at that time, that was late 81 until late 82. I took a full academic year plus a whole summer. So it's 14 months. And many interesting things happened to Hollywood there. One of the issues of Beirut and Arafat and the Israeli army being defeated, checked out and, by the Mujahideen in Beirut and so on, etc. But also inside, there was in Daly City. Daly City is a part of south of San Francisco, part of San Francisco toward the Pacific side, because you have San Francisco on the Pacific, and the other side, the internal Gulf there, which is between it and Oakland. Oakland is inside and the Gulf between. And there was rain, and that the area is hilly there, mostly mud hills. So it's dangerous to build on that in the first place. But if it is heavy rain and so on, it's very well possible that you have mudslides and your house could be slide with the mud and so on. So there was mud slices, sliding, etc. And the television was interviewing the people and so on. And one guy, not very old, like in his late 40s, he said, the house was disappearing and my daughter was half in the mud. I held her hand and I tried to pull her. I couldn't. I screamed to God, "Oh God, help me," to push her out, but he did not help me. Clearly, there's nobody there to listen to me. I don't believe in God anymore. Let's give an example. Why? Because his background, how he was brought up, is that the Son of God himself became human, suffered on the cross, that horrible suffering, to save humanity for something, whatever that something is, from the law or from the devil or whatever it is, or from the initial sin. So he's willing to die for that. He should have, that should be easy for him. What's the problem there? And the same issue with suffering. So if you have become that background, you are more closer to becoming disbeliever and kafir. The one in Medina at the time, the Prophet addressed indirectly, nobody complained to him, but he said, some people will do that and say, I'm supplicating. No, I don't, no response to me. And he give up, become desperate and give up. And so say, continue praying, because now he clarified, the clarification come. And I thought the Shabab knows that should be trivial really. But anyway, let me clarify. Say, because when you supplicate, you will be responded to anyway. Either that what you asked for specifically is given as you requested for, and that's what you as a human being expect as to be acceptance of his supplication. Say, for example, oh God, I cannot lose my father at the moment, and he is now stage 2 cancer or 3 cancer. Make that this treatment, maybe the triangle of stage 4, make that this new treatment, which we said out of desperation, we will test on him, is a new treatment. There's a hope that it will work after a trial, because usually after a new treatment is tried done with the people who are desperate, and there's nothing to lose of trying with them. We agreed on that, make it work this time. But he dies, so it didn't work. So what you wanted is that the response will be that the treatment will work and he survived that stage 4 cancer. Yeah, is that clear case? Okay. That's what he regard as responding to my prayer. So say, no, that's one way. Another way is that Allah will, there's a bigger evil coming which you don't know. Allah will step in the universe and prevent it from hitting you because of this throw. You think at the moment, losing my father is the biggest problem I have. It may be not that big as it, because you're going to lose him down the road anyway. But there may be something bigger calamity. Like, for example, a truck going off-road and hitting your building, the side of your building, and crushing your wife and the children. And that will be a bigger calamity for you, because it will make your life upside down, much worse than losing the father, who is an old man anyway. I'm just trying to construct a case, something like that. And that because that Allah stepped in and changed events so that this truck would not go off and destroy your family. That's a response which you absolutely unaware that it has been done in the background. Or notice on this, he brings you some good things which was not available today if things went the normal way there, which is more weighty and beneficial for you and for your father, is that, for example, you had a family dispute which came over the level of bloodshed and confiscated him, and then the uncle who confiscated some of the inheritance of the grandfather and deprived your father and made his life miserable for all life, repents and come repenting and give that to your father, cheering up his spirit in the remaining time for him. But every one of you will benefit from that. And he stole billions or millions. Now you become rich and you have a better life. That's a great good coming to you. With this, it happens. You don't think when it happens that it's because of that supplication has not been fulfilled the way you wished it, but better than that. And the fourth case, in the worst scenario, because the system of the universe, the entanglement does not allow anything else, you get enormous reward, which is better Yawm al-Qiyamah than responding. And this is even the best, because if Allah will grant you this report, meaning He is granting you that I will make sure that you will die as a Muslim and you will get that reward. That's the best of the best. So all possible of response. Responding exactly as you asked, that's what you think as response with your narrow and limited mentality. Secondly, preventing a bigger evil than the loss you think you are preventing by this dua. I gave the example of the stage 4 cancer, but you can construct for any example, which is better for you, but you may not see how better it is unless it is really happening. And usually you don't connect that with that. Thirdly, a better benefit is coming in this dunya, and the best of the best is nothing happen in dunya. Everything goes as if mechanically, is there nobody responding, but he say, write for him this, for this sincere dua and for the devotion, write for him a reward, enormous reward for Yawm al-Qiyamah, and that's guarantee that he, even if he commits a sin, will force him back to repentance, which is not a usual system of the universe. You have to repent on your own, but Allah will force you, because I promise that reward will get to you, so you have to go there. Exactly like the people of Badr, do whatever you want, I forgive you, meaning I will force you to repent, or I will give you atonement by shahada, or something like that, as discussed in our research about the Badri and the Massari Awali, that Allah took in him that these will not die on kufr, and they will never touch the fire, they will escape. I take care of that with all possible means which I have in my power, in contradistinction to the usual system of the universe. So these 4 or 5 responses are there. But this poor guy who was pulling his girl hand has no concept of that. And the church and both evangelical churches, the Catholic church, they don't have a concept because they did not listen to the messenger, the final messenger. And they decided that this is an impostor. We're not going to listen to him. If they listen to him, Pauline Christianity, which the Christianity we have, is not really the Christianity of Christ. Christianity of Christ is Muhammad Salam. That's a continuation, the pro-continuation. They would have forsaken that, and the whole history would have changed, but it didn't happen. So we are now, today, in this situation. And you have someone like, which is really a great mind, like Bart Ehrman, I mentioned him earlier, in the Tafsir, becoming an atheist because of the problem of suffering. His finite mind is unable to comprehend that this universe has been chosen in such a way that it's a testing universe to test obedience and ibadah. And this necessitates certain things which must be, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. It may be for some being which is limited, maybe waver and change and play games. That's not the way the absolute necessary, the truth will be. Okay, is that an answer sufficient? We'll comprehend that answer and absorb it correctly and repeat it several times so you understand it. This is the novel point of view of this one. That's a mistake. And this widespread. I remember someone, I don't know his name, who was active in the, what the name of the bar we were meeting with Abu Hamza, Sharba.
There was a coffee shop, Charbar, many years ago.
And so on. And he is attending, so he's not just a commoner, he's not just a farmer or simple-minded. He's quite sophisticated, university graduate in Britain and so on. I will not mention his name. He have some ideas. I did several times to remind him that's not the way supplication responded to. So it can happen even to relatively sophisticated people. You expect them to, but he never went to the level of atheism, obviously, because his background is from Islam, and there's no vision of God that who dies on the cross for you. So there's no, and extremely unlikely that he'll become atheist because of that, but he become desperate and say, it's futile to, Allah doesn't care about me or something like that. And then the devil will try to get you through desperation and giving up the hope in Allah's mercy, which is a major sin. You should never give the hope in Allah's mercy, because this means you have not known Allah as He should be known and respected. That's it. But we cannot blame the one Pauline Christian who started from the divinity of Christ, and then they stuck with the issue of the crucifixion, and they have to find a justification for that. How come such a divine being, so supreme, come on the cross? Oh yeah, because He's loved the world so much. That's and I seen creed which says God loved the world so much that He came, that He gave or sacrificed, sent His own Son to sacrifice Himself for us, for our sake, and died on the cross for our sake. That's part of the creed, fundamental part of the creed. Read the Nicene Creed in its exact formulation. That's an essential part of it. Without this current Christianity, Pauline Christianity cannot be understood. And this is not from the Gospel themselves, essentially. It is, except an embellishment later. But if you go, the root of it is in the Pauline letters. That's it. That's it. It's a Pauline Christianity. It has nothing to do with Christ. But if that's your background from childhood, it's difficult to blame you for that. So we have to work, people, Da'iyah and so on, and Christians should work in the root. And the root is that they go back and just get rid of this Paul and go back to Isa. They go back to Isa, meaning forsaken the Nicene Creed. No more Trinity, no more divinity of Christ. What is this? Islam. Because the earlier church in Jerusalem and around, that's led by the brother of Christ, Yaqub, and later by his brother Thomas. Thomas means the twin, etc. That's to be explained another occasion. What does this all mean? They were essentially, and even there are many indications from their literature that they believe that the Old Testament and the previous scripture are corrupted exactly like the Muslims and so on. But this is all gone by following Paul. Few statements of Paul destroyed everything. Following Christianity. So it should not go to a level of atheism, except some people going in this environment. You have, if you discuss with some person like that, say your starting position about what God is, about what is the universe, what the reality of existence is wrong. Let's review it from square zero. Painful, but we have to do it. For Muslims, it's just don't despair. There are all these kind of responses. And Allah has at liberty to choose the one which is more beneficial for you than you think. And that's what He always done, the better one for you. Secondly, fits with the situation of the believers at the moment. Because maybe responding to that exactly what you wanted will pull the plug on because of the entanglement on a whole planet somewhere in a galaxy far away. You never know how the entanglement works. It's mind-blowing, it's incomprehensible, but you trust that it is like that. And you trust that the response is better. So Umar commented when the Prophet said that, he said, إِذَا نُكْفِرْ. No, we'll supplicate plenty, because we will be responded always some way or another, even if we don't know. What the Messenger Allah answered him? Allahu Akbar. Allah is more than what you think. He has infinite riches. And the other hadith, عذاب كلام and my bestowance and rizq is kalam. I just need to give a command, it happens. This is unlimited, infinitely. It's all just a divine will, and it happens. So you don't think that you can exhaust me. And in the hadith, even if the first of you and the last of you and so on were in the most pious heart, and the narrator say like the heart of Muhammad regarded the most pious of you, this will not increase my kingdom even a dot. It's not increasing my kingdom. And all of you, first and last, on the worst heart, like the devil, it will not reduce my kingdom. It's your deed, I'm counting for you and giving it you back. He's telling you deed. Actually, your deed is original for him again. The capability of doing the deed is from him. If you find something good, then praise Allah. If you find something bad, then blame yourself. And in between say, and if all you come in one place, all humanity from beginning to the end, ya ibadi, or all creation, creature addressed by ibadi, if you come in one place, and everyone asks, and I give them exactly what they ask for, it will not take anything from my kingdom and wealth, except maybe just to make it acceptable to the mind, like a bird coming to the seaside and picking with his beak something, and then taking some water on his beak. How much of the sea has been reduced by this bit of water which is stuck on his beak? Nothing, almost nothing. Just to make it a little bit, instead of say 0 and nothing, that would sound very mathematical and philosophical, but take as much as the bird taking from the sea. How much is it? Nothing, essentially. So this, in this case, it should not be an issue, but anyway, we have a hadith clarifying that, and we have rational discourse clarifying that. But extreme becoming atheist, that means we have a serious problem there. The guy's starting point is somehow wrong, or he has been infected with the Western definition of the divine. He loved the world so much that he sacrificed his own son for that. That's the moment you get there, you're not talking about God, you're talking about some kind of a construction which is internally contradictory. Cannot be the divine, the necessary existing. That cannot be an attribute of the necessary existing. Simply because dying is impossible for the necessary existing. Becoming human is not possible for the necessary existing. Becoming flesh is impossible. It's not a matter which power can extend to. If you build the divine idea of the necessary existing in a correct way, all these nonsense. Same all the nonsense say, can God, for atheists say, can God create a stone which is so heavy that he cannot lift that? It's contradictory. A stone of infinite heaviness is self-contradictory. It does not make any sense. It's not creatable. So the question, can do that? No, this is not accessible to power. It's not accessible to power. So this is kind of fallacy. So starting with the definition of God, a possible definition of the necessary existing, because God, the most fundamental one is the necessary existing. That's the most one. And that is the creator. That's the starting point. Because from deep analysis from mathematics and philosophy and rationality, and necessary existing being acting by necessity, not by free will, is impossible. It will lead to contradiction. So it has to be by free will, which has to be free and sovereign. You have to accept that and not fall in the trap that he's dictated. There's a wisdom who is dictating to him. His own being is his own wisdom, and he acts according to his being in a free way. Shows why. If you start with this, which is safe and no inconsistency and contradiction, then all these issues of becoming human and so on will be settled, and then all of it turns out all this Nicene Creed is just an imagination. How it did develop? They start by admiring Isa excessively. He cannot be human. He must be more, become divine. The moment you become really, genuinely divine, not just close to the divine, the moment he becomes that, then you fall into the infinite problem of complexity of contradictions. And then you will never get any out of that until you say, no, he's not divine. He's created. Then all the whole problem is gone away, and the whole Pauline Christianity is evaporated. You do the right way, it's fine, better for you. You don't do the right way, or you are not aware about, maybe Allah forgive you. We don't know. But if you know that and you don't go that way, then you would be, you should be ready for some hard questioning in Yawm al-Qiyamah. Okay, so long answer for a similar question, but that's fundamental question is that it is responded to, but you don't know how the response is because you think Allah is limited like your limited mind. No. He has infinite many possibilities to choose from according to the situation of the whole universe, because at the same moment you are supplicating for this, there may be huge ants who are rational in another galaxy. I'm thinking about, there was a cartoon movies in the 80s.
Starship Troopers?
Yeah, something like that, or Grandizer and things like that. And the enemies were getting ants from another, the huge ants, which only an explosion of a volcano can kill them. Maybe there are ants like that which are rational, and they are supplicating also at the same moment. And there's no way to unplug the universe except by ending the universe. Ending the universe is not an option because it has a clear destination and way of going. So you respond to these in such a way and in such a way so that the universe is not unplugged. So the hole is not blasted. Okay? So yes, if you want to expand that horizontally more than necessary. But the example I gave with the stage 4 cancer and this guy, the poor guy in Daly City, it's called Daly, D-A-I-L-Y, city in California in 1982. I remember that very vividly because I felt really the pain of the man and I was in deep pain. How can I bring him that message to him? That imagine your daughter is now half in the mud and you're trying to pull her and you're desperately screaming to God to help you. And still the mud's swallowed there. You could not. You have to let go. Otherwise you'll be swallowed. So he did the right thing. Let go. Because it doesn't make any sense to go with her. So let go. Imagine you in this situation. A'udhu billah that I would be ever in such a situation. But I remember seeing it in the television. I felt really deep pain. And I understood his position, understood where he come from. He's coming from this. And this is his upbringing. He has no fault in that. He may have never heard, but we know for many Americans who convert to Islam and so on, and even European, they never heard about Islam. If they hear, the horror stories. We know that. I put so many stories of basic Islam for you to consider. Not because the story is itself, but show you what the background and how the situation really is. How successful the church and the Roman Empire, when they were defeated in Syria and kicked out, how successful they have made an iron curtain, very solid iron curtain for centuries, preventing any light of the Islam to penetrate to Europe for centuries, and keeping the people there in their ignorance, deep ignorance. They may believe that they're right, but independent of their belief, the reality of the physical reality is that there was such an iron curtain that the people there did not know about anything about Islam. Actually, they didn't know anything about the world. They were the bottom of the humanity in matter of knowledge and technology and science and everything else. To give you some side jokes just for enjoyment, when the moon goes went all and swept over Russia, and then they stopped when they were in full force. Their way is that, or the way is no, they come with a small group first, 5,000, attack the poor peasant outside of the fortification. So the peasants flee to the feudal lord. He has to accept them. He's a feudal lord. He has this. So they accept there. And they keep few people who attack anyone coming out to do plantation, but they attack at the street. So that land become unattended to and grows enough grass and so on wildly. Next year, then it is grazing land because the Mongol Tatar army has the distinction that it is a horse riding army. Each soldier has 10 horses to exchange between them. So if they come with 100,000, they have 1 million horses. So they need grazing land. So they prepare this way. Next year or 2 years later, when everything becomes grass and there's no barely telling of the land, They come and do the next job and then finish even the feudal laws and everything. They reach almost to the border of the current Europe, like Poland and so on, and they stop there. And some analysts say, why did they stop? And we know that they were sending small delegation and business people negotiating with them, see what else they can conquer and get from that. And the conclusion is that until there, the only booty they got from these places, because they're so backward, this feudal system, they were so backward, beginning of agriculture, very backward agriculture and so on. The only thing they can get there is that they could capture good-looking blonde women and sell them in the slave markets in China, Southeast Asia, India, and Arabia. And they sent tons of them. Okay, fine. But soon, when they reached like the Polish border, the markets there of the white, nice, blue-eyed woman collapsed because they were black women were more desirable than the white one in these markets. So when they reached that border, they checked, they sent their small delegation as trading people, and they told them the rest of Europe until the Atlantic, where they could have swept it in a couple of years. There's nothing there, for God's sake. The same mess like what we have here in Russia. No gold, nothing worth going for, except blonde women. But the markets are saturated. We don't need them anymore. Are we going to sacrifice and fight for nothing? It's like a shanty town. Just leave it. And they started their local kingdoms and so on, and then they settled and became obviously corrupted and civilized, and then they engaged in fighting with the local rulers. The long history of how the Russians then ultimately were able to push away the Tatars and so on. So that was the situation in Europe. Complete ignorance. The last of the Africa at that time, which is regarded as backward, was much more prosperous and advanced than that. We have kingdoms there, we have gold, we have, what's the name, Musa bin, the king of Mali and so on, who caused inflation because of the availability of gold and so on. There were kingdoms there, well-structured kingdoms like in Abyssinia, even up to Congo. There were huge kingdoms and cultures and civilization. Europe was the end. And they remained, because of the iron curtain of the church, remained in that situation for several more centuries than the others. And when they broke out, later on, they needed to tell themselves a story that we are really, our civilization is Judeo-Christian and maybe Greek-Roman. We have nothing to do with this other world. And they told them the story that they're somehow superior to others. No, they were the end of the human caravan. But they're telling them the story that we are superior somehow, either by genes or by our own culture. And they try to refer everything either to Judeo-Christianity, because they are Christian, nominal Christian, or mostly, especially after the so-called Enlightenment, to Greek-Roman, where the Greek-Roman civilization and so on is very dependent and thankful to the Jewish prophets and so on in Egypt after the Babylonic exile, and also possibly to Indian influence. But they deny all of that. It is the ingenious of the genes of the Greek and the Romans, except our internal ingenuity. In these Aryan people, they are genuinely intelligent in themselves. They have to tell them this story because of the minority complex. If you look at your history and see that you were the bottom of the whole humanity, either you accept that and say, okay, I was that, and I learned and became progressed forward, but for that you have to humble yourself to Allah. But that's not what the believing that God died for you will initiate. You don't learn humility this way and submission. So you have to tell yourself a story that you have someone superior. Yeah, it was a bad phase. The superiority was hidden, but I am superior intrinsically. I didn't get anything from anybody else. It's all from me. It's all from me. Even if it's dark ages, the other son must be worse in dark ages. That's the reason they were denying that the people have golden age at that time. No, only modern scholarship in the 20th century brought that forward, which caused a deep shock for the Western psychology, which is ongoing now and they're digging deeper. But in the 19th century, dark ages, meaning our dark ages, the rest of humanity don't exist. They're irrelevant. They have no contribution, have no input. Anyway, I indulged in something which is not related to the question, but that's what has just a summary, a rough summary of what's going on there. Okay, next question. But that's your question's application. That's the correct answer. Dictated by reason, self-necessity of reason, before even revelation. But the Prophet explained it in a beautiful way. And the hadith said that Umar responds with the correct one. Is that nukfir? Then we would supplicate for everything. Even if it looks like asking for a miracle. No problem. And the Messenger says, Allahu Akbar. He knows how to respond. You can ask, my son, my servant, you're asking for something impossible at the moment, but because you are asking and humbling yourself to me, I'll give you a reward for that. Yeah. You can expect that. Good. Carry on. Next question.
Okay, somebody wanted to say something, but their mic is incorrect connected. So if they want to connect the mic, the icon's not showing. So that's Edward. All right, let me see another question. Quick, go through the.
Get another
chats.
question, and then the people who have questions
Yeah.
they can step in. Mhm.
Okay, so this one, it's a bit of a contemporary one, and you might not be familiar with some of the context. Let me see if I bring it up. Give me a second. Okay, so if a scholar who is close to the ruler, i.e., a scholar of the sultan,
Mhm.
and he gives a fatwa saying that people should love and obey a bad Muslim leader, such as a khalifa, and gives a fatwa to protect them, is that a major sin but not kufr? Question mark, right? Okay, and then next part follow on from that. But what if
Let me
someone
answer
gives
this first. How do you care it is a major sin and so on? Are you going to account him Yawm al-Qiyamah? Again, ask yourself, had been created to account him Yawm al-Qiyamah? No. It's a major sin. He's doing a criminal act. What the level of the criminal act? Leave Allah is just Yawm al-Qiyamah. What a benefit to the if it is called? Let's say it is kufr. What does the benefit you of compared to a major sin? It has absolutely no benefit for you, because it seems to be in his background mind. Say if it is kufr, then this makes legitimate that I can shed his blood. No, you can shed his blood only if he is with the rule in such a way that he is part of the resisting group which can be fought legitimately because they are aggressive and shedding blood or having a sword in their hand. That's the reason for fighting a resisting group which is objecting to Sharia or usurping rights with using brutal force or military or real force. If you count him as belonging to them and giving them support verbally in such a way that you could say he is part of this group, because waging war is not only by the sword. The tongue is sometimes worse than the sword. Like visual media and so on. Like Ka'b ibn Ashraf, when he was peaceful until Quraysh was defeated. He was attacking Islam and so on in ideological way. Nobody regarded as an act of war. When Quraysh was defeated in Badr, he was in a state of shock. He went to Quraysh, condolenced them, and encouraged them to fight against Muhammad. He encouraged with words. He did not do an army or did anything. But this, an act of war. You encourage an enemy to fight you. He is joining the enemy, at least verbally and intellectually. And that's the reason I said, this man should be assassinated. Okay, that's in Sahih al-Madinah. He became a warrior now. If this scholar crossed that bound, then his blood can be shed as discussed with Ka'b ibn Ashraf. Now the question, is it feasible? Do you have a group which fight against this system? Does it make sense to do this action now and so on? That's another issue. But in principle, is achievable. If it is not that level, then he's still protected. His extreme point of view. A kufr point of view or halab, what, it doesn't matter. So my question, why you're asking about that? Are you going to scare him Yawm al-Qiyamah? No. Also, if you are thinking about waging war, that's something else. But waging war is not because of a kufr statement or not a kufr statement. That's the mistake, the fundamental mistake. His blood is still protected unless he commits acts of war.
Also, many people are excused by ignorance, misunderstanding in some of these circumstances.
That's what Allah has today. But if he is with the regime and doing that, and he's a warrior, like the one pulling the sword, the one pulling the sword to the regime, all of them are convinced. No, some of them are like donkeys. But in the battlefield, you have to kill them. You can't say, show me your heart. I see if you are a good man and so on. Doesn't work this way in the dunya, in the battlefield. That will be sorted Yawm al-Qiyamah. So separate these two things. If you separate them, you are safe. You don't need to ask either it's kufr or major sin. It doesn't make any sense. That question doesn't make sense. It's coming from background of something there which is wrong. That's it. Yeah. Just clear your mind from the issue that just being a kafir, meaning your blood can be shed. No, that's not. Okay. It's as protected as a Muslim. Muslims have a double protection of the ayah. الذي لا يقتل نفسه حرم الله إلا بالحق. Where is the haqq for this? You have to have an evidence that is haqq. So the souls, the blood is protected absolutely. Well, the only thing it can be shed is haqq. Haqq is according to Quran and Sunnah with the mutawatira, with the indices you have to be, because this is a fundamental principle. You can't violate this by based on a questionable hadith or a questionable understanding of hadith. So that will case in the case وما اعتدى عليكم فاعتدوا عليكم بما اعتدى عليكم, and then the ayah of muharaba, those who wage war against Allah's messenger, and he described the people taking usury as waging war against Allah's messenger. So they have been also to be doing, they are liable of execution even if they have no sword. That's act itself an act of war against Allah's messenger. But Ibn Abbas said in that case, the first time they should be asked to make tawbah and should be educated about that, because the issues of the usury is a bit deep. Not everyone sees clearly. Second time, they must be executed. Okay, but we can discuss that fine detail. And then before the abrogation, if someone commit zina, adultery, or who has been previously married or currently married or something like that, because that's abrogated, we don't need to go in this question in detail, was stoning, that's abrogated. So to everyone now to the 100 lashes, so it can't be killed. That's all. Sheikh, Quran, Sunnah, you will not find anything else. Issue done, dusted, and so on. And inshallah, we'll finish the recitation soon and translate it for everyone.
Okay.
The initial jihad, and said there's no so-called initial jihad. All of it is essentially, ultimately, a defensive jihad, but it takes various forms depending on the situation. And we'll classify all of them, inshallah. This and also the old research. It's not. It's actually research, but was written and directed to the people in Iraq when they were fighting against the Americans in the 2003, 2004. As fighting resisting group, when she tried to put a clear border and clarify that it is, and there's an appendix about the protection of blood and absolute, and he refuted the theory of that kufr by itself is enough to force bloodshed. No, this is wrong. I will edit that also and bring it in a new version, inshallah.
Okay, I'm going to continue with the rest of the question because it seems to be leading somewhere. So I'll read the whole thing out.
Okay.
The rest of it, just so that you can see the context and see where it's going. Okay. So he continues, but what if someone gives us a fatwa? So there's going to be three more lines I'm going to be reading out. So, but what if someone gives a fatwa supporting emirs or leaders of countries that have embassies and alliances with the USA and Israel against other Muslims, and he defends and protects those leaders? Does that fall under kufr, or is it also a major thing? Because this is a second follow-on. Because with a bad Khalifa, Sultan, or Rahbar, or like an Ayatollah, that person still claims to rule by Islam. But how does it work with Gulf leaders, especially after they have been exposed regarding cooperating with other countries? And then a final one. Let's take an example of people like, so he mentions by name a person called Adnan Rashid and the Muslim Lantern. So basically, these are more pro-Wahhabi.
My answer will answer that automatically. Listen. If this act of having an embassy, for you, I mentioned the Israeli embassy with countries who are at war with Muslims, if this act can be on the term crisis and so on, classified as supporting them against Muslims, fighting under their banner or supporting against their banner, I don't think it's just the embassy is not sufficient for that. It's not sufficient for that. But having a base where the planes start is enough for that. So you have to establish that. Is that under the category fighting under the banner of the kuffar against Muslim, breaking the muwala, then it is the reason for war, and the reason by itself as an act, pure act is an act of kufr, or also a major sin, obviously, and regarding making you the one doing that in dunya as a warrior. What's in your heart is irrelevant. It's as I discussed earlier. So it's a branch of this question. You waive it as you have to establish having an embassy of a warring enemy in your country while this warring enemy is engaged in war in another place. Is that supporting them to? I don't think it's reached the level of supporting them because you're not fighting with their banner. This embassy is just exchanging diplomatic relation and having a communication channel. But having a base in which planes start, really, you are allowing them to fight, and you fight under their banner. Either you're allowing them, if they have control over the embassy, then you are fighting with them or under their banner against the other country, against our Muslims, or you are forced. If you are forced, that's an excuse for that for you personally, but still the act itself cannot be tolerated. You have to do everything possible as a ruler to get rid of the space.
Also, just to clarify, so I'm just going to interject for the person who asked the question. We've previously stipulated that what invalidates a ruler anyway is if they rule by kufr or they oppress the people even. So these Gulf rulers, they're not valid anyway. We don't believe any of these Gulf rulers are valid. They are.
But he may refer Khilafah Uthmani at later time, for example. He may. It's all possible. It doesn't. The question is that what is this act? Is it supporting the disbeliever against believer so that they in their fight so that they can kill the believer and so on? You are under their banner or not? That's the question. That's what take out of the fold Islam. Anything less than that has to be analyzed now about that. Is there anything less than that a reason for bloodshed? Only if it is an act of war, as we said. So if you have all of that, you can judge the thing. Is again coming from the background that is major sin or kufr and so on. Is the wrong approach. Yeah. Is it an act of war? Is it an act of aggression, which you have the right to fight back on it? That's it.
I mean, from a political international perspective, we'll cover this more in the Palestine update, which is clearly that the Gulf states are absolutely in the wrong. They are allying with the kuffar.
Well, that's not. It goes without anything. That's independent. Even if they apply every Islam otherwise inside the country, which is not true, but even that is irrelevant.
Because
they are warriors with the kafir under the kafir banner, so they have done allegiance and alliance with the kuffar.
Now, bringing it more local, so this second part, the third statement that he made, or the fourth statement, is he personalized it to a couple of individuals. So I don't want
just apply that. And
no, but the thing is, this can be easily misconstrued. So he gave the example of someone, Adnan Rashid, and Muslim Lantern. So these are good da'is. They do a lot of dawah, but they have fallen either deliberately or through silence have played into the same rhetoric. I'm just giving background of the standard Madkhali discourse, which is fixating on Iran at the moment when they're being bombarded, and then fixating on sectarianism. So
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Is the study that tells them this your regime you are defending is irrelevant unless you are convinced that Iran in its totality, not only the regime, are kafir. Then you are supporting now kuffar against another kafir. That may be one level below kufr, but still it is not allowed. It's a big haram anyway. Okay. But anyway, so for that you have to say, you have to assert and make with absolute certainty that Iran as a totality and the people there, they are kafir, and there's no way he will be able to get there. There's no way. So
that's to read out exactly what he said. So let's take an example of people like Adnan Rashid, Muslim Lantern. What if someone receives money from leaders of those countries, for example, sponsorship or financial support from these regimes? How is that judged in Islam? So someone's a da'i who's dependent on sponsorship from the UAE, etc., etc. How is that person to be judged?
If he receives sponsorship for his activity, charitable activity, and so on, in itself is not a problem. But if that's conditional and he responds to that by supporting their policies, what he said, that they fight against other Muslims, and they justify that, then he broke the limit of allegiance himself. That's it, simple.
Well, what this guy does is he doesn't. It's a sin by omission. If I used to use just using the linguistic term for the sin.
No, you can't do very well. Very well. The one Emirati comes and give you money. You know that his intention is try to get you to speak that. I'll take the money for charity. And if he says now you speak or say no, I will beat you with the shoe. Get lost.
Now what they do is this.
Because the money is the money of the Ummah. It's not their money, for God's sake.
What they do is this. So here's an example.
It's all beating around the bush. It goes to the principle I said now. That's by itself not. But if it is in response to that, you support their action and justify it, then you are joining them either by believing it's to be true. Then you have to clarify with you, tell you this is the mistake and this, or you are doing it just for the money. Then you are a traitor. You're like the spy who spies for money, or the
this person's
as well for money.
Just to put things in, Sheikh, I have really attacked Adnan Rashid repeatedly myself, but I haven't seen him justifying the invasion. All I've seen is...
And it is that Adnan Rashid, don't discuss that about Adnan Rashid. I wouldn't to discuss him. We should discuss with him.
Yeah. So the person who's... So what I'm saying is, what they do is this. Look, Sheikh, there's obviously context to something. So, for example, if there's a point whereby everyone's ganging up on a Muslim country against them, and this person chooses that point in time to use sectarianism, you know
Gosh, what I
directly, yeah.
explained, the principle explained that are enough. Now analyze Adnan Rashid or Hocus Pocus, whatever you want, and make your judgment. That's it.
So the questioner, if they have specific quotes from
If he
them,
asked me about Adnan Rashid specifically, this way you are saying, I didn't see what he said exactly and the context sufficiently to get. I have no idea. I give you these principles. You
Yeah,
judge because you know Adnan Rashid and listening to him. Why are you asking me about that?
yeah. So for example, I haven't personally heard him saying something which falls in, I've attacked him for being selective. So
No. What I'm saying here, it seems to be his starting point is wrong. We corrected that fundamentally. Now, after this correction, he has go and study Adnan Rashid based on that.
Yeah. So if the person is the questioner, if you have direct quotes from Adnan Rashid, then by all means send them across. Send the links as well.
No need to
can
send. He
comment.
can judge based on this, but he has to have the clean principle to start with. And he has to answer. I don't believe that having an embassy, even for someone warrior against other country, is considered that you are fighting. Necessarily might mean you are fighting under their banner against other Muslims. So you did not broke al-wala, which get you out of the fold of Islam. That's the convention internationally, and the time passed receiving the messenger. When the messenger Allah received the messengers coming from Musaylim al-Kadhab, the Musaylim the liar. Upon receiving them and discussing with them and sending them back safely, he did not break anything. He did not admit that he is a messenger or anything like that. No. The mere having a messenger receiving and give them the necessary security according to well-established international rules at that time and guide them back. By the way, Musaylama did not do that to the messenger of Allah, and he killed them, violating even international law. Shows the difference between the characters. But in the middle of that, this has nothing to do with allegiance of it. The problem, if he support really someone fighting, support him in fighting against Muslims, that's something else. You can analyze the situation correctly. You have enough brain and vision of the reality to recognize that. The mere embassy, just an embassy, is not enough. We should. He's confused about what meaning of allegiance, what relation, and all these things. Again, coming from the issue of what constitute reason for bloodshed and what constitute kufr. So he has to clarify that. And for that, you have to go to the fundamentals of the Quran and Sunnah. There's no escape. There's no escape. And work in a structured way, not haphazard. And the first step is to clean that issue of that kufr does not shed the blood. That's number one. Other sins may lead to shed blood legitimately. Like someone want to stop you in the highway and put a road barrier, a couple of rope, and try to rape your wife. And they do really raping her by force, by machine gun. These are warriors, and they should be exterminated and killed. That's it. And if apprehended, there is a mandatory death penalty. So that's clear. They may be not kafir. They may just be driven by extreme desire or whatever, or hatred to you because of tribal issue and so on. That's not necessarily kufr itself. But that's ironic in dunya. If it's kufr or not kufr, and the rank in akhirah, leave that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's none of your business. If your business is, can I kill them now? Yes. That's it. That's the business you should be concerned about that.
Okay. Got something you wants to ask on my...
It's very clear, I think, but that clarify the basic premises. There's some mistake. If you clarify that, having an embassy is not necessarily meaning that the one you exchange the embassy and have messenger, that you are supporting him by the fact that there's a message, that there's a now permanent messenger there, which is the embassy, but having a base on which planes start. Let's assume the base is there against your will, for example, or for previous generation, put it there. If they attack Muslims there, then you must say clearly publicly, I cannot prevent them. They are here by force. I have no power to stop them. But you have to admit that they are here by force against my will. If you don't say that, then we must assume that you are agreeing with their action. You cannot hedge and say, oh, my sovereignty, blah, 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 like what Qatar did. No. Say, I cannot say anything to the CENTCOM base there. If I say, they will beat me with the shoes. But you have to admit it. Not come with arguing sovereignty and beating around the bush. Then we classify that you are supporting them because you are allowing that. If you say, I'm not allowing, it's against my will, but you didn't say it. You have to say it because it's a public issue and you have to say it publicly. You can't get away with that. You should not have gone away, but that the B-52 start from there and bomb Afghanistan in time past. But they, unfortunately, they got away. Or pretended, because we needed the base to protect us from ourselves. If they don't care if they need the base or don't need the base. You are approving by the base being in your land with that. Even if they're doing that against your will, even if you said, no, don't do it. Normally, if you say don't do it, it may have a repercussion. Maybe they will not do it. But to a repercussion, they may come and attack you in the palace, but there's no choice. There's no choice. But you have to say it publicly at least. So that everyone knows that. We can do that structure in every case by its case. But you have to clarify the basic principles first. That's it. I think that we discussed that sufficiently. Now, with Adnan Rashid or Hocus Pocus or Muhammad al-Massari or Umar al-Juhani, it doesn't matter. That has to be discussed as a person, especially in da'wah. And you should have the courage to do first the clean work first, and then analyze and confront him. Brother, you are doing is this, allegiance to kuffar because of this and this. What's your response? He will come with his response.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't said anything explicit from what I've seen. He's just been conspicuously silent on certain issues.
But you have to have the courage to do it. Or just don't open the matter of Adnan Rashid. Just get the general question. But in the general question, clearly there's some problem in the foundation. I hope I clarified that enough.
Okay, somebody wants to jump on mic. If you get to a place where there's no background noise, you can unmute now.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
If you're combining salawat, you have to pray them in order.
Yeah, it has to be. But it's clear.
1 second.
It's clear. If you combine salah.
Yeah, if you're combining salah, like if I'm combining
if you put Dhuhr and Asr, Dhuhr first, Asr.
Pray in order.
Yeah, naturally. What is the natural order?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very obvious.
And then the next question is, if I go to the masjid and they're praying Isha, but I'm praying Maghrib and I join them.
Join them, and if you join them in the second rak'ah, that's fine. Then you have 3, and then you make salam. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you join in the first one, then remain seated and make salam. Or if you don't want to attract attention and don't want to cause upheaval because maybe people don't understand, sit a little bit, make tahiyyat quickly, make salam, and continue with them one rak'ah just as a nafila. So that you will say, what this guy is doing, is kafir, what is he? No need to, just to take care of the feeling of your Muslim brothers, for example.
All right, so I can make salam before they even finish.
Yeah, that's normally what you should be. When they go for the third one, you stay and go, you read your tahiyat and make salam. If someone asks, I suggest in that case, you sit a little bit as if you are not able to go and you have knee problem and so on, and make taslim and go up. So nobody will come say what you are doing. Are you Hindu? Or you some? You don't want to excite Muslim brothers, invite some problem in the masjid. That's the reason for that, just to be courteous to the people around you.
Yeah.
But if you think that's not necessary, you can sit. Most likely nowadays people understand that. So I would sit. Or if I reach al masjid, I think I hear the iqamah, then I wait until they finish the first rak'ah, lift up from there. Then only 3 remaining. Then I join. You are a sensible human being. Please.
Because before I just sat down and waited till they go to the 4th rak'ah till they came down, and then I just finished with them.
Yeah, just finish with the 3rd one.
Cool, that's fine.
Yeah, just follow the imam, because you are obliged to follow the imam as primary. That you miss maybe one sitting or so, that's not relevant. Most important, you have the number of rak'ahs correctly. It can be that you have the intention for to doing Maghrib and then after doing Isha, that's no problem, because you have to do Maghrib first, have the intention of Maghrib, that's it, and structure it properly, and after that you do Isha. You may do it in the masjid that people think you are doing Sunnah, but don't worry about what people think. It will cause no problem with you Muslim brothers, if you think about this point. But for you it is Maghrib and Isha, yeah.
All right. And then I remember one time you said that you think that after waking up you don't have to do wudu.
You don't have to do what?
I remember one time you said that sleep doesn't like invalidate your wudu.
I didn't understand the question. Please articulate.
I remember one time you said that sleep does not break your wudu.
Yeah, that's my madhab.
All right. So you know, I've heard somewhere, I can't remember, that you have to, apparently after waking up, you have to wash your hands and
Most madhahib say it is break the wudu. I'll tell you, but
Yeah.
the evidence is poor. That's it. You can take it or stick to the other madhab.
Now, my actual question is about because I read somewhere that Ibn Hazm believes that what's called, after you wake up, you have to wash your hands and your mouth or something like that 3 times.
Don't worry about what Ibn Hazm says. There's something is different than the wudu. Ibn Hazm believes that sleeping break the wudu.
Yeah.
So it is irrelevant to this question.
Hmm.
The other things, for some reason, I don't know. Check his evidences, and if he has good evidences, yeah, that's. But I don't go in these small picky things. Set in your mind, set this question. Should I for the majority to be in the safe side? Fine. Or
I don't really know.
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. All right. So after you wake up, you just pray salah straight away.
Yeah, naturally.
All right, cool.
If your wudu is not broken, if your wudu is not broken, unless there's evidence with Hazm has, check what Ibn Hazm said and why. That's it.
All right.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, that's it. Simple. That's it. No need really to ask these pretty questions. But please try to get you to the usul. Please.
Oh wait, actually one more question. Just because it came onto my mind when you were talking earlier. Is there any logical evidence someone can give for the reason why a God cannot exist at any point?
No, there's no, what means there's no reason. It's just an assumption for some people based on certain either gut feeling or certain confusion about issues. But even if you say they may have a point, and it's very difficult to bring them the other evidence which need very deep mathematics and logic and philosophy, they say, okay, that may be this and the other one. Let us look at prophethood of other evidences. That's what I say, just to make easy to the people who are not necessarily skilled but actually say that ultimately the atheists have the following way. First of all, they say the issue of that it could be nature, it could be original. The only original initiator is nature, which is acting by necessity. That's the deaf blind, what they call nature, or some law, or some kind of a law, which is not necessarily not a god, but it is necessarily exist. The question, such an entity cannot exist. This is the proof for that is very complicated indeed. There's another escape they're trying recently, is to say it is very well possible that all things in the universe are created and contingent, but their totality is does not need an existing being. That need also a deep analysis, a very deep analysis, meaning that the concept of necessity existing is not required. That need another deep analysis. Both can be refuted, but it's very complex. In that case, okay, then we have evidences of prophethood, and we have at least one prophet which is historically established with absolute certitude. Let's check this one at least, and balance the evidence on the other side. That's the way to deal with people who do not have necessarily the philosophical background and so on. So plenty of evidences for the divine. Prophethood is enough by itself.
Yeah.
You don't need to assume. Let's just assume it's possible this and possible this. Okay, let's settle by something which we can access without any doubt. We have historically this Muhammad and this and this and let's see what all arguments void for. And if you do it properly and structured, you will end necessarily. There is no way that this Quran could be from Muhammad, no from the Arab, no from some kind of a spaceship which came 1,000 years ago. All of this is impossible. Because some part of it is impossible of human origin. It's simply impossible. But you have to do that in a structured way. Most people recognize that just by reading the Quran. Most people, that's the reason I put various people who are this. Just the moment they read the Quran, they are in a state of shock. Especially the one coming from a Judeo-Christian background, comparing with the Old Testament. They suddenly, all the problems they had before are cleared out, most of them. But they have to read innocently. Maybe it's a revelation. But you see, when they mentioned that someone gifted them a Quran, they put it on the shelf for years, they're collecting dust. They didn't even open it because they said, this is a friend giving me that, they must be mental. How can Islam have any merit? It's just some kind of highway robber there in Arabia doing that. That's what the Sheikh have been educated them over centuries. Until an occasion comes that he is desperate to find something and say, let me open that and see. And then he has had the shock of his life. That he has been lied to all his life. Because it's so clear and evident by any someone having. Yeah, okay, that's the issue of it. I'm going to that's an issue which is way too deep. We don't need that really, because all the evidences are clear and so on. What the atheists and so on try to get to escape from is just trying to be essentially a sophistry. It ultimately goes to them that they should say that rationality is not acceptable. It's perfectly fine to be mentally senility and accept senility. Okay, if you accept senility, nothing can be discussed about you. Because accepting senility meaning nothing can be ascertained, everything can be true and false at the same time. That's senility. And you have to make a final decision about that.
Okay. Let's. I think I'm conscious of the time, so I might. We might just stop the Palestine update now.
If there's question and answer, we can have next time.
Yeah.
There's
Also,
no
just
of the month, but we can. Yeah, because of we missed the last one and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This Tariq, do you have the book Tariq al-Iman? Is that the same as Kitab Tawheed?
Yeah, but chapter 4 in Book of Tawheed is enough for that. That's more than
Okay.
enough.
Was there supposed to be a separate book initially?
Maybe we'll not need that. We'll expand that, inshallah, and put it maybe at the beginning, revamping the Book of Tawheed anyway. So
Tariq al-Imam, have we?
It was supposed to be a different book, but there's no need for it. The fourth chapter would do the job. Yeah.
No, what I mean is that, do you know which chapter it fell under? Have we covered it already? Is this?
Yeah, we covered the chapter 4,
Yeah.
as it is existing now. Just go to it. More than
cool.
More
okay, because obviously there's just so.
But there was planning to go to all the sophistication of the various atheist points of view, philosophical points of view, and so on. Possibly maybe in an appendix and summarize in the main body. I have various ideas. Now I have structured it differently, and will be the Book of Tawheed. Maybe it will become step 4, become number 1, and we revamp. But what exists there, I think, is more than sufficient. I think more than sufficient.
And there's also there's always plenty of resources. You've got Sapiens, Hamza's resources also.
Yeah, we have many other things. Yeah, we have many other things.
Between them, there's always possibility to do. Okay, so I'm going to stop the broadcast. So somebody's got some questions related to political analysis. We'll put that at the end of the Palestine update. Yeah. So okay, so I'm going to stop the stream now because YouTube doesn't like us. So bear with me a second. Let me just check something. Okay, somebody's got a quick question. What are suitable conditions on the ground for you to return to Saudi Arabia? What would need to change?
What need to change? That this regime disappears. That the Kufr ruling and the rise of the Kufar ended, or the regime disappears, or we don't know what happened there. That will follow the update, inshallah. We'll discuss the issue. Can Saudi Arabia exist after that? If things go the correct way they seem to be going now along.
Okay, I'm stopping the stream now. Any questions you guys have, you'll have to wait till next week. Also, if you want direct question answer, you can always join the Zoom. And okay, sorry, someone's just spamming. Okay, so next week will be dedicated Q&A. Okay, so I'll stop the stream now. Let me just make sure it's
tomorrow. Let's remind everyone tomorrow 8 o'clock as usual.
Okay, all right. Tawheed tomorrow as usual. Okay, I'll just do a comment then, shall I? Let me just... anyone who's watching this stream, can you just make sure that I'm still seeing something?
Yeah, just stop it and it will stop.
Yeah, I've stopped it. It's because there's new settings in it. So
okay,
stop live stream. Let me just check to see if it's definitely gone, because
check in your other if you have another computer.
Yeah, I'll just check on my phone in it.
Yeah, check.
Bear with me.